Chapter 973. The significance of the semi-divine weapon refining furnace was epic-making. Not that the semi-divine weapon itself was epic-making. 4 5-star refiners. If they had enough good materials, it was not difficult to refine a semi-divine weapon. The difficulty was how to refine a semi-divine weapon with the materials of an ultra-quality spiritual weapon. This was the key point. This was epic-making. This meant that the materials that could be used to refine ultra-quality spiritual weapons could now be used to refine semi-divine weapons. What if this was not a great achievement? Then what should it be called? At this moment, the 3 of them, together with the semi-divine weapon refining furnace, had been moved to the refining hall of the central city. A large group of refiners who had learned the news had already surrounded this place. Li Yunfei said, "Everyone, please wait a moment. We'll have a meeting when everyone is here." In the most luxurious refining room of the refining hall of the central city, several people were discussing the naming of this refining furnace. This thing was developed by Guan Qingyan and Mu Jia under Han Fei's leadership. So, the 3 of them naturally had to come up with a name. This was also a rule of the refining hall. Yu Su smiled and said, "Don't underestimate the matter of naming. This is a great event that will go down in history. This means that from today on, all the people who use this kind of refining furnace will mention its name every time they mention it. And this name was given by the 3 of you together." Li Yunfei smiled and said, "Han Fei, what do you think?" Han Fei bared his teeth and said, "Is it very important?" Beihua smiled and said, "It can make you very famous. The entire 1,000-star city may remember your name." Han Fei glanced at Guan Qingyan and Mu Jia. Although Guan Qingyan looked cold every day, he was actually the one who had been studying it the longest. Of course, his contribution was definitely not as great as Han Fei's. As for Mu Jia, although she was joking all day long, the last idea of refining a semi-divine weapon was put forward by her. In this research, she also put forward a lot of suggestions. Before Han Fei spoke, Mu Jia said, "Let's call it the 3 heavenly talents refining furnace to represent the 3 of us refining geniuses." Everyone, Han Fei felt that his name was bad enough. He didn't expect that there would be someone even worse than him. Han Fei curled his lips. "Then we might as well call it Han Guanmu, refining furnace." Everyone, Mu Jia pouted. "Why am I the last?" Everyone rolled their eyes. "Are you at the front?" After a long silence, Guan Qingyan said, "Let's give it a name." Han Fei gritted his teeth. "How should we name ourselves?" Li Feiyun smiled and said, "Isn't it simple? Why does the surname come first? How about the Nanyamu stove?" Everyone, Han Fei had no choice. "Forget it, old Guan. It's up to you." Mu Jia, "Actually, what do you mean by actually? You eat peaches." Han Fei reached out and stuffed a peach into Mu Jia's mouth. "It doesn't matter what the name is. Anyway, people will know the 3 people behind the name." Guan Qingyan said, "Listen to Senior Li, call it Fayamu stove." Li Yunfei laughed, "See? My suggestions are always good." Yu Su and Beihua snorted. To show off. About half an hour later, everyone who was supposed to be there had arrived. At this moment, the refining room was full of people, and everyone's eyes were fixed on the Fayamu stove. When they got the news, to be honest, everyone was dumbfounded. They thought that the array mark proposed by Mu Jia was already advanced enough. Although it was a bit troublesome, it was enough to refine semi-divine weapons. However, suddenly, someone told them that they didn't have to do anything but throw the materials into a stove, add spiritual energy, and a semi-divine weapon would automatically appear. Who could resist that? How could there be such a good thing in the world? At this moment, someone asked, "Master Yunfei, is this the refining furnace that can refine semi-divine weapons?" Li Yunfei said, "It has got a new name, Fayamu stove. This stove was developed by Han Fei, Guan Qingyan, and Mu Jia as assistants." Then Li Yunfei smiled and said, "I don't want to say anything. Any one of you can come up. You the tallest one. Come up and operate it yourself." Sun Jia was refreshed. "It's my first time operating such a good thing?" More importantly, he was only a 3-star refiner. He immediately said, nervously, Senior Li, I'm a 3-star refiner. Can I do it? Li Yunfei smiled and said, I just want to choose a 3-star refiner to operate it. If even you can operate it successfully, then this Faiyamu stove will definitely have no problem and we can start mass production. Li Yunfei was not joking. The materials of semi-divine weapons were very rare, and it was impossible to refine semi-divine weapons with them. However, if he couldn't refine the Faiyamu stove with these semi-divine materials, he could only throw away the materials that the Scattered Stars Island had accumulated over the years. Sun Jia went on stage to practice. In the crowd, there was another 3-star refiner staring at Han Fei. Han Fei had already noticed him. Who is this uncle? He looks a bit familiar. Han Fei suddenly remembered that when he went to the refining hall for the first time, he paid money to watch others refine weapons. It seemed to be this person. At that time, the other party wanted to teach him, and that person was also shocked at this moment. What kind of monster is this? At the beginning, he wanted to give him some advice. However, seeing that Han Fei was arrogant and said that refining was easy, he immediately lost interest. But now, Han Fei was already a 5-star refiner, and he was still a 3-star refiner. Seeing Han Fei looking over, he hurriedly lowered his head, thinking, don't recognize me. On the field, Sun Jia took a breath and Yu Su said with a smile, concentrate and refine according to the normal method of refining ultra-quality spiritual weapons. After the spirit refinement, just put all the materials in through this hole. Sun Jia nodded solemnly. Spirit fusion, meticulous, and even a little high concentration. After all, there were so many pairs of eyes watching. One mistake, and he had lost face. He didn't even know where to put it. Fortunately, everything went smoothly, although it took a little longer. However, there was no problem with Sun Jia's operation. After a while, he poured the materials into the mold. Immediately, the Faiyamu stove automatically began to operate, and spiritual energy gushed out. The spiritual fire burst out, and the originally dark lines on the stove, when the spiritual fire rose, seemed to be drawing a beautiful picture. About 500 minutes later, when the spiritual fire was extinguished in the stove, a long sword floated in the air, emitting a cold light. Its quality was by no means comparable to that of ordinary ultra-quality spiritual weapons. Wow, it's done? So simple. Isn't this too simple? F*CK. With this stove, the pattern of human beings will change. Ultra-quality spiritual weapons may become a thing of the past. If everyone is equipped with semi-divine weapons, the strength of human beings will take a big leap forward. Someone shook his head. Don't be too optimistic. First of all, how many stoves can this Faiyamu stove be refined? This is a problem. With such a large stove, it must consume a lot of resources. And human beings have a large population. Even if they refine day and night, how can they let everyone hold a semi-divine weapon? I'm afraid it will be a very long-term thing, not something that can be done in a year or two. Li Yunfei said, I know your concerns. This time, I summoned you here just to demonstrate to you how to operate the Faiyamu stove. Later, I will go to report to the general in person. Use the top materials of the Scattered Stars Island to make the Faiyamu stove as soon as possible. In addition, 3 days later, announce this to the whole city to give everyone a shot in the arm. After the demonstration of the Faiyamu stove, except for Han Fei and the other two who were praised, the crowd dispersed. Yu Su handed the 5-star refiner certificate to Han Fei and said to Guan Qingyan and Mu Jie, you two can also get a 5-star refiner certificate, but not now, after you forge all the Faiyamu stoves. Guan Qingyan nodded. Of course. Mu Jie had no objection. She found that Han Fei was too perverted. Han Fei smiled and said, Senior Yu Su, well, I only have a 5-star refiner certificate. Yu Su smiled and said, the general said you can go to see him yourself. Han Fei. To be honest, Han Fei didn't want to meet Shueishenqi. Every time he saw him, he would put on a straight face and act like a big shot. Then Yu Su added, oh, by the way, the general said that after you forge all the existing materials into the Faiyamu stove, you could go to see him and forge all kinds of weapons. Beihua added, you have to write a book. It can't be delayed. Han Fei. Han Fei rolled his eyes. I'm a hero. I've contributed to mankind. How come I become a robot on the production line now? However, on second thought, as long as I don't die, the entire thousand-star city will belong to me. I'm also helping myself. Thinking of this, Han Fei immediately felt much more comfortable. 8 years later, many people should be able to get semi-divine weapons, right? 3 days later, Han Fei and the others were building the Fayamu stove in full swing. Mujia even directly engraved the words Fayamu stove on the stove, as if she were afraid that others wouldn't know. And on this day, it was also the day when the Fayamu stove was announced to the entire Scattered Stars Island. On this day, the whole island was in an uproar. Many people, after appreciating the Fayamu stove, directly described it as amazing. And Han Fei was given a new name, Father of Semi-Divine Weapons. Chapter 974. Central City, the General's Mansion. Han Fei was looking at a huge map hanging in Shueishenqi's room and couldn't help but exclaim, "This scene map even covers the location of the 10,000 Demon Valley." What? Are you interested in the 10,000 Demon Valley? Shueishenqi finished dealing with the official business at hand and looked up at Han Fei. Han Fei came back to his senses. Nothing. I'm just a little curious about the territory of the sea demons. Shueishenqi didn't know whether he was listening or not, so he changed the topic abruptly and looked at Han Fei leisurely. The Fayamu furnace was made in time. This step is quite good, quite similar to the refining divine platform of the sea monsters. Han Fei was slightly shocked, and a surprised look appeared on his face. Oh, really? I heard Senior Beihou mention it. However, I think this should be the only way to go on the right path of refining. Really? Without waiting for Han Fei to answer, Shueishenqi said, "Your strength should be almost used up, right?" Han Fei replied, "Almost." Shueishenqi nodded slightly. "That's good. After the Scattered Stars 4th Unit's business is over, go to the sea for a year. After that, you can almost go." Han Fei said lightly, "After a few years, I'll come back." Shueishenqi nodded. "If you can come back alive, and if you still want to become a king." Han Fei shrugged his shoulders. "Okay. However, I have calculated the resources on the Scattered Stars Island. If all of them are used to make the Fayamu furnace, we can make about 48 of them. I think there should be more, right?" Shueishenqi said lightly, "Of course. As for the rest, I will arrange it myself. This time, you will get an 8-star rank. 1 year later, I hope you can get a 9-star rank. Other rewards are meaningless to you. Leave them to others. Okay, go." It was not a big deal that he didn't get any points. Anyway, Han Fei didn't lack those points now. If there was no accident, the value of level 2 soul crystals was far less than before. The only useful thing was the life fruit. However, in the battle of the ancient battlefield, he had accumulated as many as 100 life fruits. Life fruits were no longer attractive to him. As for cultivation methods, he couldn't use them now. He could use this 1 year to temper himself, to prepare for the trip to the 1,000-star city. He didn't know what would happen if he went there. After all, that was the enemy's territory. Inside the club, a party of 4. So, Shueishenqi has a purpose. Since he doesn't want to create more Fengyan Mu furnaces, I can deduce that the primordial battlefield has just opened, and he still needs this place to train others. Luo Xiaobai shook her head. It's not that simple. Everyone wanted a semi-divine weapon. However, the Scattered Stars Island had a large population, not to mention the 1,000-star city. Just 48 was definitely not enough. Even if a refiner worked day and night, could he refine 20 semi-divine weapons in a day? Even if they could refine 1,000 semi-divine weapons a day, it would take several years to meet the demand of the Scattered Stars Island, which would create a sense of fierce competition. At that time, there might be conditions to obtain a semi-divine weapon. Luren Kuang said, "I heard that 480 pieces can be refined in a day." Zhang Xuanyu said, "I heard about it too." Luo Xiaobai said, "The Scattered Stars Island needs this mechanism. In the beginning, semi-divine weapons certainly can't be popularized. Otherwise, what motivation do the people on the island have? The reason why the marshal prolonged the time should be to prepare for the war that Han Fei said 8 years later. And in the next 8 years, we should keep everyone in a state of tension. This is a matter of vision and pattern. Hearing Luo Xiaobai's words, Han Fei immediately understood. When semi-divine weapons were basically popularized, it should be the time when everyone on the Scattered Stars Island was most confident and their combat power would be at its peak. He had to admit that this was a good plan. If it were him, he would definitely want to make all the semi-divine weapons at once. It would be better if each person could have one. Anyway, it's not my own money. Han Fei thought for a moment. How to deal with the sea demons. Shueishenqi's thinking was very clear, which made Han Fei feel less pressure. Han Fei shook his head and said, "Let's not talk about this. In a few days, my refining book will be finished. At that time, I'll give it to the refining hall and we'll go to sea." Zhang Xuanyu immediately said excitedly, "Okay, I can't wait. It's time for our strength to improve by leaps and bounds. It's time to go out and fight." Han Fei sighed. In the past half a year, he had been getting used to the power he had gained. Because the power obtained by the source water was too sudden. It was like a catalyst, suddenly catalyzing him to the peak that he could reach now. As a result, his cultivation was useless, and he couldn't make any progress. And Zhang Xuanyu and the other two had indeed made rapid progress. They had fought too many times on the ancient battlefield, experienced the underground city, the boneyard, and obtained opportunities. After coming out, Old Han also gave them a wave of opportunities. They didn't lack resources, so it would be strange if they didn't make progress. It was also because of Han Fei's half a year of getting used to that their team stood at the same level for the first time. They were all advanced hidden fishers, and Luo Xiaobai even faintly touched the peak. Of course, in terms of combat power, the three of them should still be inferior to him. However, if he were to take on 3 of them at once, and he didn't use the void lines, and all 4 of them used their secret techniques, he reckoned that it would still take a while. 5 days later, on this day, on the roof of the refining hall in the west of the Scattered Stars Island, a loud roar spread in all directions. Many passers-by and the people from the logistics division looked up and thought, "Let's see which idiot is shouting on the rooftop." When they looked up, they were surprised to find that it was Han Fei. Under the refining hall, someone shouted at the roof, "Master Han Fei, why are you up there?" Han Fei laughed and said, "Everyone, don't miss this opportunity. Today Han Fei, appeal to everyone to consider learning refining. Although everyone already knows that the Fei Yinmu furnace can forge semi-divine weapons. But everyone in this world, there is nothing that can be obtained without hard work. The number of semi-divine weapons is limited, but I can tell you that I have improved the refining technique. Perhaps, in the near future, you can also refine your own weapons. At least, it is completely possible to refine ultra-quality spiritual weapons. Now, I have put my works and improved refining techniques in the refining hall for everyone to learn for free. Everyone can take them. Everyone can learn them completely free. Okay, I'm done." Han Fei finished speaking in one breath and flew south on the Wind God boat. He had made an appointment with Luo Xiaobai and the others to gather on the south coast. To the west of the Scattered Stars Island was the direction to the 10,000 Demon Valley. To the north was the direction to the Sea of Pearls. The border between the east and the north also included part of the Sea of Pearls, but not all of it. Now, it was mainly the location of the ancient battlefield. And to the south of the Scattered Stars Island, Han Fei hadn't set foot on it yet. As for why Han Fei ran to the roof of the refining hall to shout, that was because of Bei Hua and Yu Su. According to Yu Su, with the Fei Yimu furnace, the price of weapons had dropped a lot. Now that people had hope, fewer and fewer people came to learn refining, and any discipline needed talents to promote it. Therefore, they invited Han Fei to swindle them. However, Yu Su and the others didn't expect that Han Fei would swindle them like this. They didn't know whether it would work or not. Little did they know that after Han Fei left, many people rushed to the refining hall. This scene caught the refining hall off guard. In the distance, Bei Hua and the others were very satisfied. However, the next moment, they couldn't laugh anymore. Someone in the crowd said, "Free? Is there such a good thing? It would be a waste not to take it. Let's take it first. Later, we could take it home and spread it." Someone laughed and said, "Yes, yes, yes, I'll pass it on to my son. When he goes to the level 3 fishery, maybe I can refine 2 ultra-quality spiritual weapons for him if he can't get a semi-divine weapon." Someone sneered. "Do you think you can refine it just because you say so? It's very expensive to train a refiner." Someone said disdainfully, "Practice with ordinary materials first. Ordinary materials are not valuable." Someone agreed. "Although you can't refine them, even if you learn them, I heard that the spirit fusing technique is heaven level. At least you can learn 3 refining techniques." Beihua, Yusu, Li Yunfei, 3 days after Han Fei and the others left the Scattered Stars Island. In the sky, the cloud whale flew over with a roar, carrying a lot of people on its back. The competition of the 36 towns should be held once every 5 years. It had only been a little more than 2 years since the last time. 3 years was almost enough. There shouldn't be a large number of people coming at this time. On the back of the cloud whale, a 4-star hanging fisher said, "Let me tell you, you can be said to be the luckiest group of people in the history of the Scattered Stars Island. Do you know? Just half a year ago, humans and sea demons launched a shocking battle of tens of thousands of hidden fishers. We humans killed more than 5,000 sea demons." "Senior, what is a sea demon? What is a sea demon?" The man said discontentedly. "Don't interrupt. Listen to me slowly." The 4-star hanging fisher talked for a long time, telling these teenagers about the past of the Scattered Stars Island and the sea demons. The story that seemed like a fantasy caused these youths to be excited, and their hot blood surged. The hanging fisher said, "Because of this war, we humans want a chance to breathe. We don't need to be on tenterhooks to prevent the sea demons from attacking us all the time. Besides, Marshal Schwed delegated for the first time the sea area within 5,000 kilometers of the Scattered Stars Island is completely open to you." A teenager said, "Senior, why is it only 5,000 kilometers? The level 3 fishery is hundreds of thousands of kilometers long. Isn't this 5,000 kilometers too small?" The hanging fisher was so angry that his face tightened. "What do you know? Do you know how big the previous limit was? 200 kilometers. You're only 5,000 kilometers, and you don't like it? Do you know what this means? The outer sea area is more than 500 kilometers, and any creature can kill you. What do you think this is? This is the unknown place." Suddenly, a teenager asked, "Senior, do you know Han Fei?" The hanging fisher was taken aback and couldn't help but look up at the starry sky. "This is a legendary figure." Someone asked, "Who is Han Fei?" The hanging fisher smiled and said, "He is a madman who broke into the Dark Hunter Legion twice. He is a hanging fisher who wandered alone in the outer sea for a year and survived. He is a strong master who beheaded countless people in the top battlefields of the ancient battlefield. He is a peerless heavenly talent. In more than 60 years, he is the only one who has obtained the legendary Wind God Pearl. He is the only magical refining genius in the entire history of the Thousand-Star City who created a semi-divine weapon with ultra-quality materials." The more the hanging fisher spoke, the more excited he became. In the end, he was so excited that he couldn't control himself. He calmed down a little before continuing. "There are too many rumors about Han Fei. When you find the organization, just ask around and someone will tell you. Okay, that's enough. Next, I'm going to tell you about your star titles, waist tags, and position assignments." In the crowd, He Xiaoyu let out a long sigh. Sure enough, he has risen to prominence. Another couple sighed and looked at each other. It was the same river, the same place, but different people. The Tactical Command Center, the Trans-Island Patrol Team, the Fishers Union, the Dark Hunter Legion, the Logistics Readiness Bureau, the Guard Group, the Law Enforcement Group, the Pioneer Group, the Refining Hall, the Alchemy Union, and many others were welcoming the newcomers. "Where is Yang Fei? Where is Yang Fei? Is Su Chun here? He Xiaoyu, who is He Xiaoyu? Come here quickly. Who is Wang Baiyu? Come here. Let me have a look at my new teammates. Chu Jinan, Ling Yuan, where are you? Come here quickly. Don't keep me waiting." The Pioneer Group is recruiting. Those with 2 stars can give up their sideline and follow us. You guys won't miss out on eating and drinking. Does anyone want to join the Dark Hunter Legion? If you are my brother, join the Dark Hunter Legion. Come here. The Fishers Union is recruiting. Sign up first. It won't affect your work. We are recruiting refining apprentices. They are purely sideline and don't need experience. They will teach you step by step and won't affect your main profession. 100 high-quality pearls per month. A moment later, a girl who looked like a girl frowned and looked at the 2 people in front of her. Why are you only advanced dangling fishers? How can you get a 3-star rank? Ling Yuan frowned and said, Why? Are you doubting our strength? The girl sneered. I don't know if you got in through the back door. Do you know where you're going? Chu Jinan asked in a daze. Where? The girl straightened her posture and said, Cough, cough. Listen up. I am Wu Xiao Xiao, the captain of the 37th Advanced Scout Squad of the 8th Battalion under the 3rd column of the Skeleton Shore. I received a message from my superiors that 2 3-star members will come today. I didn't expect that they would be advanced dangling fishers. Chu Jinan smiled and said, You may not be able to defeat us, Duong. Duong, Wu Xiao Xiao, was about to teach the arrogant boy a lesson when she looked at the crowd in surprise. Why is the door-carrying marshal here? Hasn't he become a law enforcer? Why is he here to pick us up? Wang Dashuai, who was carrying a big gate, attracted a lot of attention. He was looking around. Junior brother, junior sister, which one is Chu Jinan and Ling Yuan? Wu Xiao Xiao. Chapter 975. It had been a full year and a half since the war on the ancient battlefield. The Scattered Stars Island slightly relaxed the entry standard for the major academies of the 36 towns and the 7 academies of the 1,000-star city. At the same time, they also opened the entry qualifications for some peak-level dangling fishers in the Level 3 fishery. Although the standards were only relaxed a little bit, the result of this little bit of standards was that hundreds of thousands of people suddenly poured into the Scattered Stars Island. After all, the population under the rule of the 1,000-star city was too large. Just like in a college entrance examination, a difference of 1 point could defeat thousands of troops. Now, this was a situation. Because of the addition of these people, the people who were originally stationed on the Scattered Stars Island could go a little deeper into the waters around the Scattered Stars Island to hunt. This year was destined to be the busiest year for the promotion of talents on the Scattered Stars Island. Because there was no invasion of sea demons, the strength of human beings grew very fast. At least, there were especially many people who broke through from peak-level dangling fishers to hanging fishers. Of course, this was only the offshore sea, which was relatively safe. Everyone only needed to face the dangers from the sea itself, without the invasion of sea demons. However, there were still many sea demons outside the sea 200,000 kilometers away. Although the 10,000 Demon Valley was hit hard once, causing the battle line to shrink with the danger and vastness of the sea, human beings still couldn't set foot further into the deep sea. In this year, there would always be some people quietly rising. Some people's stories were also spread by word of mouth. In fact, on the sea, any battle could actually become a story. For example, someone discovered a small mystic realm today. As long as the explorer survived, he would have one more topic in the carnival shop. Another example was that someone found an exotic creature somewhere. They would exaggerate the process of the capture, which could also become a topic of conversation. Anyway, the carnival shop was a place for drinking and bragging. There were simply too many pieces of news that were left there every day. It could even be said to be innumerable. In addition to these topics, of course, there were often some strange situations. For example, a team went to sea and never came back. For example, a certain human was found to be problematic and was caught by the Scattered Stars prison. For example, someone fought with sea demons in the outer sea, and among them, there was a story like this. It was said that in the outer sea, several mysterious people appeared. They came and went unpredictably. In just 1 year, they had destroyed no less than 100 sea demon nests. Some people said that it was the law enforcers. However, they couldn't let the sirens know that a large number of law enforcers were hunting them. So they made up a few mysterious characters. Some people said that they were from the Empyrean waterfall who had been grounded and were now out to cause trouble to the sea demons. Some people said that he was saved by someone during his exploration, and that the person was Han Fei. The pair of phantom glass wings was very beautiful. In any case, there were all kinds of them. Should he take it seriously? That was the matter of the storyteller. On this day, the sky was clear and boundless, and the clouds were high and far away. About 600,000 kilometers away from the scattered stars island, for people were crouching in a sand pit in a deep valley with a sand waterfall. Luren Kwong said, "Fei Fei, it's been 3 days. Why haven't the sea demons come out yet?" Luo Xiaobai nodded. "Don't worry. This treasure trove shouldn't be very large. Maybe something inside has attracted them." Zhang Xuanyu was playing with the sand in boredom. "Why don't we just go in and kill them?" At this moment, Han Fei was chewing dried fish in his mouth and said lazily, "Don't panic. This time, the other party is led by a sea spirit. Besides, the other party has a large number of people. Let's kill some of them first. After another 2 hours, it will be a full 3 days. If they don't come out, we'll go in again." Not long after Han Fei and the others finished talking, in the valley, a sea spirit appeared in a seemingly ordinary stone. This person glanced around and didn't notice anything wrong. Thus, he calmly waited for the people behind him to come out. Han Fei grinned. "What did I say? Let's do it." Swish, 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 swish. The 4 of them attacked at the same time, regardless of whether the people behind would come out or not, because it was meaningless for them. As long as the sea spirit was subdued, the rest were just minions. The sea spirit, who had just relaxed, was instantly worried. In that instant, he didn't turn around. Instead, he directly ignited his blood and unleashed the sea god's descent, releasing his companion spirit. However, a large number of vines rolled up from the ground, and a stinging light instantly appeared behind him, leaving him no time to dodge. At this time, the space here had been distorted. Humph! How dare a hidden fisher come here to die? The sea spirit completely ignored Zhang Xuanyu's spear and directly used a flicker-type combat skill similar to the flying flower demon flash. However, the space was distorted, and his shoulder was still pierced by the spear. How is this possible? Huh! As soon as the sea spirit flashed out, he saw a pair of phantom wings appear in the place he wanted to flash to faster than him. The bright fist mark illuminated the sea, shrouded in darkness. Blood burning, the sea spirit tried to resist with all his strength, but he still ignored the power of this punch. The power of the hidden fisher was actually 2 waves. Bam! This person was directly blasted into a big dark hole. This sea spirit didn't even have a chance to activate Sea God Descends before he was sucked in by the big hole. A cold knife light passed through the big dark hole, stretched out from inside, and penetrated his semi-divine battle suit. Parasite. Then, the sea spirit began to sprout in his body. A terrifying vitality broke out from his body, and seaweed grew wildly in his wounds, mouth, and nose. Third sky of the sea, shaking realm. Bam, bam, beam. The space 10 meters around the sea spirit was shaking. Every vibration contained a terrifying power. 3 times in a row, the sea spirit's internal organs were shattered and his bones were broken. Han Fei didn't even need to do anything. The 4 of them cooperated and killed a sea spirit-level powerhouse. From the moment this sea spirit was hit by Zhang Xuanyu's spear, his body was no longer under his control. He wanted to use the power of law, but his power was sound waves. Under a series of bombardments, he had no chance to use it at all. Besides, his associated spirit didn't listen to his call at all, as if it was controlled by someone else. How could he win? He was thinking that he could still be reborn and had the immortal seal. However, at the moment when his heart was pierced, a terrifying soul explosion fell on him. At that moment, the sea spirit's soul was in chaos, and he couldn't use the immortal seal at all, so he died directly. And as soon as he died, the big jellyfish pinned by Han Fei with the void lines disintegrated and died together with its master. The whole battle process didn't take more than 2 minutes. A sea spirit powerhouse was easily killed by Han Fei and the others. Swish! When the second sea demon came out of the secret realm, He happened to see this scene, and Han Fei waved at him. Surprised? After killing more than 30 half-mermaids in a row, Han Fei and the others were sure that the remaining 20 or so should have died in the secret realm. And this time, the harvest was quite abundant, with 3 seas swallowing seashells full of resources, more than 100,000 caddies of spiritual spring, a mid-quality divine weapon, a bottle of pills, nearly 100 spiritual fruits, and dozens of combat skills. However, Han Fei and the others didn't take it seriously. For humans, the fastest way to grow was to obtain resources from the ocean. And they had done this dozens of times and had long been used to it. 3 hours later, the 4 of them came out of the secret realm. Most of the secret realm was destroyed, but it could be vaguely seen that there was a prehistoric sea demon here, so they didn't get any extra gains. Luo Xiaobai said lightly, "Now, as long as we don't go to the 10,000 Demon Valley, many things here are actually of little use to us, unless we find a large secret realm. However, that's extremely rare. Should we consider going back to the Scattered Stars Island?" Han Fei nodded slightly, and then shook his head. "Xiaobai, do you feel something wrong?" Luo Xiaobai glanced at Han Fei and reorganized her thoughts. "Yes, a little bit. If I were that sea spirit, I would find a way to bring that prehistoric creature back to the 10,000 Demon Valley. This is more meaningful than killing him." Han Fei nodded. "Yes, but now the ancient sea demon inside is dead. We don't know why they did this." Zhang Xuanyu said, "Will there be any information in the resources we just seized?" Luo Xiaobai nodded. "Wait, let me check again." Luren Kuang said, "I think it's very simple. If it were us, if we met a living ancient person, I'm afraid we would also become an enemy." After a while, Luo Xiaobai shook her head slightly. "No, they're just pure resources." Han Fei smiled and said, "Forget it. Let's go back to the island. No matter what the sea demons do, they shouldn't be able to touch the Scattered Stars Island in a short time. And we should go to the 1,000-Star City." Zhang Xuanyu joked, "Xiaobai, you're going home. Are you excited?" Luo Xiaobai said lightly, "No." Chapter 976. 2 days after the 4 of them left, a crimson figure appeared outside this sand waterfall secret realm. If Han Fei were here, he would definitely recognize this person. "Isn't this Qi Shuahuan? Back then, he was cheated by me." However, Qi Shuahuan's face was a little ugly at this moment. He said coldly, "The same technique, but there are spiritual plants. It's Han Fei and the other 3. A half-mermaid in the sea demon realm said respectfully, "My lord, they are too mobile. Every time they attack, they quickly end the battle, leaving no one alive. We can't go on like this." Qi Shuahuan didn't care about this, but how did Han Fei and the others know about this mission? Could it be that it was a coincidence that they met again? Or Han Fei and the others have some special ability to track the whereabouts of sea demons? Qi Shuahuan's eyes turned cold. "Chase them." "Huh? My lord, Han Fei and the others are elusive. How can we chase them?" Qi Shuahuan said coldly. "Doesn't he like to hunt our people? In this case, I'll be the bait myself." 5 days later, Han Fei and the others were not in a hurry to return to the Scattered Stars Island. Even if the Wind God boat flew at full speed, it would take more than 10 days. Besides, they were not in a hurry now. Wandering on the sea, fishing, and eating hot pot were more enjoyable than traveling. The point was that they had raised their contractual spiritual beasts in the sea. For example, now, all of Han Fei's contractual spiritual beasts had reached level 49. And Little Black and Little White had reached level 53. This was the result of countless battles over the past year. Han Fei didn't deliberately use spirit awakening fluid to catalyze them. Obviously, contractual spiritual beasts also had their own cultivation. Combat experience, comprehension, and devouring other creatures could all play a role in improving their strength. It didn't mean that they had to eat some kind of elixir, Han Fei thought to himself. Just let them work hard on their own. But when they were at the last step, he could throw tens of thousands of kilograms of spirit awakening fluid to help them make a breakthrough. During this period, Han Fei entered the Soul Sea once, when he was breaking through to become a peak-level hidden fisher. However, After various attempts and eating a lot of primitive spiritual beasts, he was still forcibly driven out by the terrifying power. Similarly, perhaps because they didn't manage to come in before, Little Black and Little White only leveled up twice in the Soul Sea. And then there was no more. And Han Fei had tried Little Black and Little White's fusion skill. If the fusion was the fusion of Little Black, Little White, and himself, then fusion meant that he could combine with Little Black and Little White, turning him into a kind of fish. The greatest advantage of this talent skill was that it could turn into a fish. Besides, Han Fei could borrow Little White's treasure hunting ability, but in fact, it was superfluous. Little White could find it by itself. However, there was also a problem with this fusion skill. That was Little Black, Little White, and himself. The three of them combined into one, which made the advantage of Little Black and Little White's immortality disappear. Once they encountered an uncontrollable danger, once they died, Little Black and Little White might really die. Of course, after the fusion, Han Fei was very powerful, so he wouldn't die so easily. But he had to be careful, so Han Fei didn't like this skill very much. If he had to turn into a fish, Han Fei felt that it was more reliable to deduce the 3 transformation wondrous book. However, now that he was going to the Thousand-Star City, there was no need for this. Lu Renquang muttered, "The growth of my spiritual beasts and contractual spiritual beasts is so troublesome. My spiritual clam is only level 46. When can it break through level 50? Zhang Xuanyu rolled his eyes and said, "Just be content. Just look at the cultivation time of those sea demons. It takes time for them to grow. Anyway, I'm not in a hurry." Luo Xiaobai said, "This can't be rushed. Whether it's spiritual beasts or contractual spiritual beasts, they all need a process to grow. It's not that they grow too slowly, but that we grow too fast." Lu Renquang said, "Then should we become law enforcers?" Han Fei asked in surprise. "Can you?" Lu Renquang sighed. "Not yet. I'm a little confused about my path." Han Fei rolled his eyes. "What are you confused about? Your path is to eat." Zhang Xuanyu nodded quickly. "Yes, just eat. I feel that this path will definitely be carried forward by you." Lu Renquang was amused. "I'm still thinking if I should take the path of infinite defense. Eating is just my hobby." Luo Xiaobai nodded. "Your hobby is what you want." Lu Renquang, Zhang Xuanyu smacked his lips and said, "Anyway, my path has long been set. I can become a law enforcer at any time." Luo Xiaobai nodded. "Me too." Han Fei nodded. "Me too." Lu Renquang was a little confused. "Do you really think I can become a law enforcer?" The three of them nodded. Han Fei patted Lu Renquang's shoulder and said, "Have you forgotten? You're a man who single-handedly ate 17 people." Lu Renquang took a breath. "Wow, that seems to be true." Lu Renquang immediately said, "Then let's go. Let's go back to the Empyrean waterfall. There's still 300,000 kilometers to go. Let's go back." When they decided to go back, Little White suddenly jumped out of the water and swam to Han Fei. "Dad, there are sea demon powerhouses more than 3,000 kilometers away." Han Fei frowned. "Daughter, are there many of them?" Little White blinked a few times. "Yes, a large area." Han Fei's eyes lit up. "Let's go back. There's a job coming." Zhang Xuanyu was overjoyed. "Sea spirit level?" Han Fei nodded. "Yes, it should be sea spirit level. But this time, it may be a little stronger." Zhang Xuanyu said, "It's good that it's stronger. The junior sea spirits are no longer enough for us to fight." Han Fei grinned. "That's what I mean too. Now, if we kill one more, we will have less trouble in the future. God knows when we will come back from the Thousand-Star City." Lu Renquang nodded. "Then let's do the last one." Luo Xiaobai nodded. "Okay, let's go back after this." 1 hour later, Han Fei said, "I sense that there are about 50 people 300 kilometers away. There are more than 10 hidden fissures. It seems that the other party's action is very important." Luo Xiaobai frowned. "Why are there so many hidden fissures in the 300,000 kilometers of the Scattered Stars Island? You know, there are often human law enforcers wandering 200,000 kilometers away." Zhang Xuanyu licked his lips and said, Maybe they have found some large relics here. Han Fei nodded. It doesn't matter. No matter what their purpose is, a sea spirit and 10 hidden fishers can't cause any trouble. But this time, should we still follow them? Or directly kill them? Luo Xiaobai said, follow them. If there is a secret realm, we can take it together. Luren Kuang nodded. Although we have accumulated a lot of resources this year, compared with the big families in the Thousand Star City, we are still far behind. However, compared with the big families in the Thousand Star City, they're far inferior. I'd better take the opportunity to get more. Han Fei nodded. Okay, then follow them. After following them for half a day, Han Fei said in surprise, I wonder what they're looking for. If they know where the secret realm is, shouldn't they have found it long ago? Luo Xiaobai and the others didn't have such a far perception, so they didn't know the situation. However, Han Fei knew it. With a sea spirit leading the way, they still hadn't found the secret realm? Something was not quite right, and Han Fei's perception and attention were all on the team that was searching. However, he did not notice that in the sea, there was a red mass of seaweed approaching in their direction. At this moment, it was less than 100 kilometers away from where Han Fei was. Suddenly, Han Fei frowned slightly. Xiaobai, stop following them. Let's directly kill them. I have a feeling that something is wrong. Luo Xiaobai glanced at Han Fei in surprise. Should we just retreat? Anyway, it's just a wave of sea demons. Han Fei said. In any case, let's keep our contractual spiritual beasts first. Swish, swish. Rays of light were absorbed into their bodies. They were all experienced people. Once their intuition appeared, they had to be cautious. Han Fei was about to say something, but suddenly, a red light pounced on them in an instant. Han Fei roared, retreat. Luo Xiaobai and the others retreated quickly, their faces changing. Not good, we've been tricked. Han Fei didn't panic. He stretched out his palm, and the infinity water pounced on the red light. Explode, rumble. Han Fei didn't hesitate at all. A character that could quietly enter his perception range, avoid Xiaobai's danger premonition, and get so close to him without being discovered was definitely extraordinary. The terrifying explosion set off tumbling waves. It was like a mushroom cloud rising, and the red light was directly torn apart. At that moment, Han Fei and the others all activated their secret methods. Zhang Xuanyu and the others had already fused with their spiritual beasts and stabilized their figures in midair. Huh, a high-quality divine weapon exploding? You're really willing to sacrifice yourself. I've really suffered a loss. Under the impact of the self-explosion, Han Fei and the others have been blasted more than 10 kilometers away. The sea surface was directly sunk into a deep pit, which couldn't be smoothed out for a long time. And in the terrifying explosion, a set of bright red armor appeared. Immediately afterward, Qixue Huan walked out of the terrifying waves. Qixue Huan looked a little embarrassed, but the degree of injury seemed insignificant. Han Fei narrowed his eyes. Qixue Huan, ranked 7th among the 8 wings of Blue Feather. Luo Xiaobai and the others instantly became serious. This time, it was different from before. The 8 wings of Blue Feather were peak-level sea spirits, which were completely different from ordinary sea spirits. In Han Fei's perception, the sea spirit and dozens of sea demon realm powerhouses who were looking for something were also rushing over and would arrive soon. Han Fei grinned coldly. I didn't expect that I would be tricked by a group of fishes today. Han Fei didn't use voice transmission, because voice transmission was useless. He said directly, leave Qixue Huan and the other sea spirit to me. The rest is all yours. Chapter 977. With a thought, Han Fei gathered the infinity water and put it away with a flip of his hand. This was going to be a tough battle. In addition to this sea spirit, the remaining dozens of peak-level sea demons were not so easy to deal with. Fortunately, Han Fei and the other 3 were also peak-level hidden fishers. In the same realm, they were the real heavenly talents. Isn't that a high-quality divine weapon? It can be reassembled? However, in terms of power, it's at most an ultra-quality divine weapon. Are you going to use this to deal with me? Han Fei licked the corner of his mouth. Who said I'm going to fight you? Qi Huan's eyes narrowed slightly. If you don't fight me, is there anyone else here? Impossible. He was sure that Han Fei was bluffing. If there were stronger opponents, they should have found him long ago. Qi Huan grinned. Do you think I will be fooled by you? Another sea spirit level powerhouse had already appeared 100 miles away with a large group of people. Qi Huan didn't mind Han Fei wasting more time. In that way, they would only die faster. Swish, the illusory image of a mountain suddenly appeared. Qi Huan's eyes narrowed slightly, but then his face changed drastically. Who is it? Swish. As the mountain disappeared, a blood-red long knife appeared in front of Han Fei, floating erratically. The knife was actually talking. Master, you let me come out. It seems that Master is in big trouble. Qi Huan's face changed drastically. A talking knife? What the hell is this? Han Fei pointed to Qi Huan and said, You can use your spiritual energy and kill him. With that, the phantom glass wings spread out behind Han Fei. Agility of wind. With a swish, Han Fei disappeared on the spot, leaving behind a shadow clone. And Luo Xiaobai and the other two also flew in Han Fei's direction. If it was just a sea spirit, the three of them wouldn't be afraid at this moment. However, Han Fei was the only one who could kill a sea spirit in a one-on-one battle. Behind him, Qi Huan took a step forward, and his four fingers turned into shadows, trying to pierce through the void and nail Han Fei to death. However, the punishing knife slashed across the air. The terrifying power slashed into the void and shattered the attack. Punishing saber snorted softly. How dare you be distracted in front of me? You're courting death. Buzz. The 1,000-foot-long saber radiance shattered the void. The terrifying might engulfed heaven and earth, and the speed was too fast. Qi Huan was shocked. What the hell are you? The medium-quality divine harpoon, Chao, punishing saber, threw out broke inch by inch with just one blow. The terrifying roar reverberated for 100 miles. Punishing blade laughed and said, What am I? I am Yin Yang's soul subduing saber. To be able to block one of my attacks, you're at your peak. TSK. No wonder Master called me out. On Han Fei's side, the problem was simple. Even if he couldn't beat Qi Huan, he could beat a junior sea spirit. Even without the devil change, Han Fei had almost 2 waves of power. After devil transformation, the terrifying power of 16 waves, along with a golden fist imprint, already caused the void to tremble. Seeing this scene, the sea spirit's face changed drastically. Is Han Fei so strong? Secret method, Sea God descends. Boom! The sea spirit was blasted away by a punch and was directly blasted back 100 meters. Han Fei sneered. No wonder you can still withstand my blow. It turns out to be an intermediate sea spirit. In the past year, Han Fei and the others had already discovered some secrets of the sea spirit realm. At this realm, the pure power of a peak-level junior sea spirit was about 3 waves, and the intermediate level was at least 5 waves. Therefore, when they used Sea God Descends, they couldn't increase their strength by 5 times like Hidden Fishers, but could only increase it by 3 times at most. This was just like his Devil Change, which could provide 10 times the strength at first. But with the growth of his strength, it was now maintained at 8 times. Han Fei guessed that when he became a law enforcer, this number was likely to become 6 times or even 5 times. This was because after becoming stronger, if the secret method remained the same, it would be difficult for his body to bear that energy. This also meant that as his strength became stronger, he wouldn't have to rely on secret methods to win in the future. Of course, in the realm of law enforcers, secret methods should still be very useful. When he became an explorer, he must have a corresponding level of heaven-defying cultivation method. Otherwise, Han Fei suspected that with the Devil Change, he might not even be able to increase his strength by 2 times. And the intermediate sea spirit that Han Fei was facing should have just entered the intermediate level, and its strength happened to be 5 waves. Under the effect of Sea God Descends, its strength was about 15 waves, a little weaker than Han Fei's. However, the difference was not big. Swish! Han Fei's doppelgangers once again filled the sky, and golden fist marks shook the void, and the void line swept out. On the other hand, Luo Xiaobai and the others were fighting more vigorously. Countless giant vines emerged from the sea, and the Grand Spirit summoning technique summoned dozens of spiritual plants of different shapes, directly wrapping up everything within a kilometer. In this battle, Zhang Xuanyu was the most direct and violent one. As soon as he used momentary time, someone would die. No one in the ordinary sea demon realm could resist the power of Zhang Xuanyu's spear. The three battlefields were filled with raging waves. At the moment when the void lines appeared, the sea spirit on the opposite side felt that there was a crisis everywhere and a law descended. That law turned out to be bloodthirsty. He was guiding the essence blood in Han Fei's body, trying to overflow. For others, this law was very strong. However, Han Fei had broken through the third level of the indestructible body, and the major acupoints of the 108 desolate god body had been combined. Han Fei forcibly suppressed the turbulence of his blood and qi. How is it possible? You are just a hidden fissure. How can you resist the power of the law? Han Fei grinned. I haven't exerted my full strength for a long time. Let me show you. Swish! Han Fei accelerated, using the agility of wind to increase his speed by 4 times, and with the enhancement of the devil change, this sea spirit in front of him couldn't catch up at all. Boom! Han Fei's figure seemed to have disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already on the side of the sea spirit, and the latter still wanted to dodge. However, a terrifying gravity suddenly descended, making his body sink. Han Fei punched at his waist and abdomen. At the same time, all 10 void lines were hung up. At this moment, Han Fei no longer needed to control the void lines separately. In the past, he didn't have enough soul power, and he wanted to control all the sea spirits. But now, Han Fei's soul power was so amazing that ordinary sea spirits couldn't shake him at all. Boom! With another punch, this sea spirit was directly blasted into Luo Xiaobai's battle group. And over there, 7 or 8 people had already died. Seeing that their savior had come, someone immediately roared, "Master, this mist is a poisonous illusion." However, as soon as the man finished speaking, he found that this so-called master pierced through him with a harpoon. Han Fei was about to go over, but suddenly his body softened. He hurriedly summoned a large amount of spiritual spring and energy fruits and crushed them. And then he saw the spiritual spring and energy fruits all fly in the direction of the punishing saber. There was a fierce battle, and the raging waves rolled up to 500 or 600 meters high, one wave after another. Han Fei hurriedly stuffed a few energy fruits into his mouth and sighed. How long has it been? The consumption is too great. I should have called water luster. After all, the sea is her home field. Just now, Han Fei thought that water luster was not as lethal as the punishing saber, so he thought the punishing saber could kill Qi Shue Huan with a few slashes. It seemed that he had thought too much. On this side, a sea spirit and Han Fei joined the battle, and these sea demons couldn't resist them at all. In order to prevent them from running away, Han Fei directly suppressed them with the law of gravity, and at the same time, the void chains swept across the sky, and Little Gold bombarded them with a lightning blade. Zhang Xuanyu used soul explosion technique, and Lu Rinquang slashed around with the true martial demonic knife. At this time, this place was like a shuraba, and most of the sea demons were killed in an instant. The rest could only hold on for a while longer. In the distance, Qi Shue Huan exploded, and the area within 3,000 meters was covered by red seaweed. Spirit entanglement. Han Fei took the sea spirit and flew into the sky, and at the same time, rushed to that area. However, the intermediate sea spirit next to him had just entered the spirit entangling red seaweed and was directly killed. At this moment, Han Fei discovered that there were countless red lines in the void. Puff! 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 The intermediate sea spirit only lasted for less than 3 minutes before his body was cut into countless pieces. Slash! At that moment, Han Fei was drained again, and he immediately took out a large number of energy fruits and spiritual energy to replenish it. But at that moment, the sky and the earth changed color, and the void was directly cracked, as if there was a knife mark, and it was pitch black. Puff! At that moment, the red seaweed was all shattered, and a red light disappeared between heaven and earth. And an arm flew in the sky and fell into the sea. When the waves gradually subsided, Han Fei grabbed the arm and said, "Did he escape?" The punishing saber trembled. "Yes, that person is a bit special. He is not an ordinary creature. He is half a step into the realm of explorer. However, it is impossible for his right arm to regenerate. Since it was cut off by me, there is no possibility of regeneration unless a venerable takes action." Han Fei thought to himself, "If you can't kill him, then so be it. You almost drained me several times, but I haven't killed him yet." The punishing saber seemed a little embarrassed. "Master, I was afraid that if I sucked too much, you wouldn't be able to fight at all." Han Fei said lightly, "I see. So be it. It's no big deal." When the punishing saber returned, Han Fei suddenly grimaced. "Am I someone who lacks spiritual energy and energy? This is a peak-level sea spirit. If the punishing saber killed Qixue Huan, it would be a great help to him." Luren Kuang swallowed. "The 8 wings of blue feather were defeated?" Han Fei said lightly. "What do you think? He is not an explorer. So, now we are also people who have the capital." Chapter 978. Qixue Huan didn't expect that Han Fei had such a helper. What he didn't know was that Han Fei couldn't release all the 5 legends in the sea-quelling painting at once. Otherwise, Qixue Huan would be annihilated as soon as he showed up, let alone run away. This time, Han Fei was really going home. If he didn't go back, even if Blue Feather came in person and the 5 legends came out, it would be useless. 100,000 kilometers offshore of the Scattered Stars Island, Han Fei and the others went to the ancient battlefield, and the wind god boat streaked across the sky. From time to time, someone would appear on the sea and scan with their perception. With the scan, they immediately exclaimed, "It's the 4 of them." As early as when Han Fei and the others entered the ancient battlefield, they had already been scanned by law enforcers. At this time, Han Fei's goal was the huge sea fortress on the ancient battlefield, a bit similar to the Pearl Diver's port in the Sea of Pearls. However, the scale was much smaller. After all, the Sea of Pearls was less dangerous, and hanging fishers could go there. On the ancient battlefield, every hanging fisher who came would die, so there was basically no other possibility. Therefore, the sea fortress was naturally smaller. However, no matter how small it was still a long-term development base, and it was half the size of a dragon boat. There are also some shops on it, mainly for resource recycling, spiritual energy monopoly, spiritual fruit monopoly, refining hall, auction house, etc. When Han Fei and the others approached, they met an acquaintance. It was Yi Xingqian, whom Han Fei had met once before. Yi Xingqian was standing at the top of the fortress, looking at Han Fei and the others with a gloomy face. Last time, it was because of his blabbermouth that Han Fei stole an undersea chimney. How could he look good when he saw Han Fei? Of course, this was just a matter of fact. Yi Xingqian was not surprised by Han Fei's achievements at all. It was even said that 2 of the seal stones of the ancient battlefield were destroyed by Han Fei. At the top of the fortress, Han Fei and the others stood in midair. "Senior Yi, what a coincidence!" Yi Xingqian looked at Han Fei and the others and was a little surprised. "You 4, your cultivation speed is really fast. Why, the 4 little dragons in the waves." Han Fei and the others were stunned. "What 4 little dragons in the waves?" Yi Xingqian snorted. "I'm told that you killed a lot of sea demons in the deep sea. Everyone gave you nicknames mainly because you guys are crazy and unrestrained enough." Then, Yi Xingqian said casually, "Han Fei, let me ask you something. What's inside that cave?" Han Fei asked in confusion, "Which hole?" Yi Xingqian snapped, "Who else could it be?" "The one from the primordial battlefield." Han Fei asked in surprise, "You don't know? That's the tunnel that leads to the underground city." Yi Xingqian said, "I know it leads to the underground city. However, the danger inside seemed to be beyond our imagination. In just 1 year, more than 100 hidden fissures have died inside. Han Fei asked in surprise. What level did they enter? Yi Xingqian said, the weakest one is an intermediate hidden fissure. Of course, they're mainly advanced hidden fissures. Han Fei said, don't you have any suggestions, General? My suggestion is to wait until you are a peak-level hidden fissure. There was a river inside. As long as they didn't cross the river, it should be fine. Once we cross that river, it will be extremely dangerous. Yi Xingqian nodded slightly. Someone also suggested this to me. However, it would be a pity if such a place of training didn't come in handy. Han Fei thought that these hidden fissures would fight on the battlefield in the future. It would be a pity if they died now. He immediately said, you should already know most of the situation inside. However, there are too many law enforcers inside, and you can encounter them easily. Heavenly talents may be fine, but advanced hidden fissures who don't have any real skills really can't brace themselves to go in. Yi Xingqian nodded slightly. Okay. Did you come here on purpose, or what? Han Fei said, just passing by. We are on our way to the Scattered Stars Island. Yi Xingqian raised his eyebrows. Oh, you're leaving? Han Fei nodded. If we don't leave now, we'll have to go to the 10,000 Demon Valley. Hearing Han Fei's words, Yi Xingqian couldn't help but grin, thinking, if only you could conquer the 10,000 Demon Valley. Han Fei thought for a moment and said, well, by the way, I have something to tell you, Senior. I think the 10,000 Demon Valley is too quiet. They seem to be preparing to do something. I was going to tell the general about this later, but I happened to meet you, so I told you. Yi Xingqian said solemnly, okay, got it. Scattered Stars Island, Skeleton Shore. 800 kilometers away from the sea, seaweed spread. These seaweeds were a little different. They looked a little cold and contained a lot of spiritual energy. On the seaweed, a total of 14 people were cooperating in the attack. All the creatures attracted by the spiritual energy were imprisoned by this piece of seaweed. Therefore, on the seaweed, the group of people didn't have a good time killing. Among them, there was a little girl who seemed to be dancing on the seaweed, carrying an armor box on her back, and sword light flew out of the armor box from time to time. The swords were flying, as if they were dancing beautifully. If one looked carefully, they would find that the swords used by this girl were different from each other. There were 7 in total. Every time they went into the gap of the seaweed, they would cut a creature into pieces. After about 5 minutes, a voice suddenly sounded. Okay, everyone, get ready to take off. Wu Xiaoxiao shouted, take off. A brawny man shouted, take off. After everybody took off, the large area of seaweed gathered and turned into a human shape. Stepping on 2 flying swords, he leaped into the air and landed on the fishing boat. Wu Xiaoxiao couldn't help but sigh. Is the Thug Academy full of perverts? Chu Jinan, are we dating? Chu Jinan immediately blushed. Little miss, don't joke with me. Who's joking with you? Smack. Someone slapped the armor box on the ground. The people of the Thug Academy don't date outsiders. Wu Xiaoxiao narrowed her eyes. Ling Yuan, there are only 2 people in your year. Do you mean that you 2 are dating? Ling Yuan blushed slightly. I'm told that the academy has a new junior sister. Jinan, what do you think? Chu Jinan felt that his blood was freezing. Forget it. I think it's good to be single. Chu Jinan shivered. Ling Yuan, it's good to be single. Yes, Gu Daliang said with a smile. You're the same as Captain Han. I'm told that the door-carrying marshal was the same. Chu Jinan cried in his heart. I tried to resist, all right, but I couldn't. Chu Jinan said in a hurry. We can continue after I recover for a while. Suddenly, someone dashed over. Everybody said solemnly, Captain. Yu Lingyun said, don't call me Captain. My transfer order has been issued. Xiao, your application to go home has been issued too. But are you sure you want to go home? Wu Xiao grinned. I'm ready to become a hidden fissure. You know that I'm timid, so I won't go to the ancient battlefield for now. The cloud-soaring town is too short of teachers. I'm going back to be a teacher. It'll be comfortable and comfortable. Yu Lingyu nodded. Okay, that's fine. That way, you won't have to face dangers all the time. Then, Ling Yun looked at Chu Jinan and Ling Yuan and said, Lil Nan, Ling Yuan, I received news an hour ago that the four of them are back. However, I don't think they can stay for long. Do you want to meet them? Chu Jinan and Ling Yuan looked at each other and said in unison, Yes, of course. On the way back, Wu Xiaoxiao said, Alas, I heard that they killed countless enemies outside. Unfortunately, we are not on the same level. Gu Daliang also nodded. Yes. Do you want to meet them? Wu Xiaoxiao rolled her eyes and said, Why should I meet them? They're gone. I hope we can meet again one day in the future, but I don't think it's possible. Deep in the twisted jungle, Mu Qin Chuan was making dumplings, and Chu Lin Yuan was kneading dough. The atmosphere was harmonious. Mu Qin Chuan smiled and said, President, do you want to change the taste? I think braised pork is also good. Chu Lin Yuan nodded. President, I always think it's a bit strange to eat dumplings with hot pot. Old Bai said leisurely, What do you mean strange? After this meal, you can go to that place. Suddenly, Mu Qin Chuan paused. Haven't General and Bai Lu already gone there? Do you still need us? Old Bai shook his head slightly. Our thug academy is short of manpower. At this time, the barrier opened, and Han Fei shouted, Old Bai, we are back. Lu Renquang asked, President, is there anything to eat? Zhang Xuanyu said, Phew. Finally, I can have a good sleep. Chu Lin Yuan said in surprise, Oh, junior brothers and junior sisters are back. Qin Chuan and I made some dumplings. Let's eat together. Mu Qin Chuan smiled and said, Xiaobai, how was the harvest? Luo Xiaobai saluted and said, Quite a lot. With a swish, Old Bai sat up straight and then looked at Han Fei and the others. Well, our school funds have been a bit tight recently. I heard that we have accepted 10 students. As senior brothers and sisters, you four should act like senior brothers. Han Fei and the others. Han Fei rolled his eyes. Can't the fish dragons support them? Chu Lin Yuan smiled and said, Okay, President, we have stocks. Han Fei and the others are going to the 1,000-star city, which is when they need resources. Chu Lin Yuan changed the topic and said with a smile, Junior brother, junior sister, you can share some of your combat skills. The more the better. Luo Xiaobai said in surprise, Doesn't our school only want high-quality combat skills? Mu Qin Chuan smiled and said, Different combat skills have their own advantages. I'll make a copy of your combat skills to train my junior brothers and sisters. Han Fei took out a sea-swallowing seashell and said, I have more than 2,000 of them. No one wants this cheap stuff. Chu Lin Yuan and Mu Qin Chuan immediately stopped talking and lowered their heads to make dumplings. Old Bai leaned back on the recliner and snorted. Let's talk about it after dinner. The barrier trembled again, and Chu Jinan and Ling Yuan ran in. When the two saw Han Fei and the others, they shouted, Hello, senior brothers and senior sisters. When Han Fei saw Chu Jinan, who was a head taller than before, he was a little surprised. Oh, not bad. You look quite sturdy. Han Fei patted Chu Jinan on the shoulder and exclaimed in admiration. Zhang Xuanyu looked at Ling Yuan in shock. Whose girl is she? She can't be Ling Yuan, right? She is much more beautiful than Ling Yuan. Ling Yuan rolled her eyes. Senior martial brother Yu, move to the side. Zhang Xuanyu. Han Fei hugged Chu Jinan and said, Nan, I know you are here, so I specially prepared a gift for you. Chu Jinan's eyes lit up. Senior brother has been thinking about us. He couldn't help but say happily, Thank you, senior brother. Ling Yuan couldn't help but be curious. Han Fei even prepared gifts for them. This was not Han Fei's style. Han Fei stuffed the sea-swallowing seashell in his hand into Chu Jinan's hand and said, Nan, in order to enrich your knowledge, I specially prepared more than 2,000 combat skills for you. Make a copy of them tonight and read them slowly. After reading them, remember to return them to me tomorrow. Everyone. Chapter 979. After eating and chatting for about an hour, Han Fei did give Chu Jinan and Ling Yuan some things. However, he only gave them some ordinary things, and the rest were stopped by Old Bai. In the words of Old Bai, no powerhouse became a powerhouse completely with the help of others. If they wanted resources, the ocean was there. They could get them themselves. After dinner, in Old Bai's house. At this moment, Old Bai set up layer after layer of seals. Han Fei and the others sat opposite Old Bai. Han Fei and the others knew that they were going to the Thousand-Star City, but they didn't know what to do there. The unknown place was already very vast. If they really wanted to go to the periphery, it should be a good experience. If they started from here, as long as they spent enough time, they could always go to the Thousand-Star City. It seemed that there was no need to go to the Thousand-Star City. Of course, Han Fei and the others had a rough idea. That was Old Bai still wanted to rebuild the Thug Academy in the Thousand-Star City. This was the only reason they could come up with based on Old Bai's personality. At this moment, Old Bai said leisurely, "You can already enforce the law? Don't enforce the law in the Empyrean Waterfall." Han Fei was puzzled. "Huh? Why?" Old Bai said lightly, "The four of you don't matter. Besides, enforcing the law in the Empyrean Waterfall is easy to go astray and will be affected by the laws there. It's none of my business, but you'd better not." Han Fei thought to himself, "There's a huge deep-sea demon down there, which is essentially different from human kings. Maybe that's the reason." However, judging from Old Bai's expression, Han Fei guessed that Old Bai also knew the secret in the hole under the old turtle. Han Fei asked, "President, do you mean we should make the breakthrough in the Thousand-Star City?" Old Bai nodded. Xiao Bai should know better. In the Thousand-Star City, there are a few special places. Everyone immediately turned their heads and looked at Luo Xiao Bai. "What special places? Does Old Bai want us to go to those places to make breakthroughs?" Luo Xiao Bai nodded slightly. "The three holy lands of the Thousand-Star City are the God's Memorial Tower, the Sky Meditation Garden, and the Ideal Palace. No one has ever been able to completely see through these three places. There are also holy lands that have existed since the Thousand-Star City existed." They looked at each other in bewilderment. What the hell is this place? Just from the name, it didn't sound very good. A burial ground of an underground city was enough to make people suffer. Now a new place had suddenly popped up. It was always creepy. Luren Kuang said, "It sounds like it's not from this era." Zhang Xuanyi nodded. "Who does the memorial tower commemorate? Sea god?" Han Fei frowned. Judging from the statue of the sea god and the sea-quelling painting, there might be many sea gods. It was more like they were fighting for a kind of human willpower and existence. Luo Xiaobai said, "I don't know. According to my grandfather's grandfather, these three places have existed since the earliest records of the Thousand-Star City. Moreover, there was very little information about these places. Even those aristocratic families only have a smattering of knowledge." Han Fei looked at Old Bai and said, "President, do you mean that we should go to these places to become law enforcers?" Old Bai nodded. "For now, it doesn't matter whether we enforce the law or not. Even if all four of you become law enforcers, you're just law enforcers in the Thousand-Star City. Which big clan or sect doesn't have a few or dozens of law enforcers?" The few of them rolled their eyes. "He's a law enforcer, after all. They were better than hidden fishers, weren't they?" Old Bai said, "Let's put it this way. There were some matters that might involve the archaic era, involving the cultivationless age. I think you should know a little bit about it." Han Fei nodded. "In the Age of Doom, big stars fell, and the water of the sea swept the mountains and rivers. This is what I learned when I explored the ruins." Old Bai looked at Han Fei and said leisurely, "Then do you know what the big stars fell?" Everyone shook their heads. Han Fei had told them about this. They thought it was a meteor streaking across the sky. Otherwise, what did it mean? Old Bai chuckled. "Since there was an Age of Doom in ancient times, why did it happen? Have you ever thought about the reason?" Han Fei and the others shook their heads. "Who knew?" Old Bai said leisurely, "I also learned about it by chance. It is said that before the Age of Doom, that era was called the Age of the Gods." "Age of the Gods," Han Fei and the others exclaimed. The name alone was domineering enough. Han Fei's heart surged. In the Age of Doom, there were sea-quelling bizarre treasures and snow gods' temples. Then, how glorious was the Age of the Gods! Old Bai glanced at Han Fei. "The big stars fell, and it should not refer to the stars in the sky. It is very likely to refer to the fallen gods." "Wow!" Han Fei and the others gasped in shock. Zhang Xuanyu couldn't help asking, "Does the gods refer to the kings?" Olbai shook his head slightly. I don't know. I'm not from that era. However, after the Age of Doom, you should know that the Sea Clan rose. In the ocean, endless creatures were growing, squeezing the living space of human beings. Lurin Kwang's face trembled. But what does this have to do with us going to the Thousand Star City? Olbai sneered. Haven't you always wanted to know why the Thug Academy broke out in a full-scale war with the many families in the Thousand Star City more than 30 years ago? Han Fei was stunned. Wasn't it because of the sea-quelling painting? Olbai sneered. The sea-quelling painting has long been available. Although it is a little related, it is not the whole story. Speaking of this, let's talk about what was left after the fall of the gods in the Age of Doom. Han Fei took a breath and said, The Immortal Palace? Olbai was slightly taken aback. Huh, is there a record of this in the sea-quelling painting? Han Fei smiled. Have you forgotten where the sea-quelling painting came from? Luo Xiaobai looked at Han Fei. Where is the Immortal Palace? Han Fei shrugged. I don't know. It should be above the Thousand Star City. Umph. Olbai sneered. Bullsh asterisk T. Is this what you mean by understanding it? If the Immortal Palace was only above the Thousand Star City, someone would have flown up long ago. Then it wouldn't be a secret at all. Han Fei wondered, where is that? Olbai narrowed his eyes and said, If I guess correctly, it is an ancient, mysterious place that was opened in an independent space. The level of that place is far higher than that of a big city like the Thousand Star City. Han Fei was very clear about this. The Immortal Palace ruled the entire Thousand Star City and the 36 towns, but now it should be empty, with only some puppets left to guard it. And they were F***King Explore-level puppets. How troublesome. Olbai said, So far, I know that 3 people have been to the Immortal Palace. Luo Xiaobai asked, Which 3? Olbai gave Han Fei a meaningful look. Ren Tianfei, who snatched the sea-quelling painting, Han Guanshu, the last commander of the Scattered Stars Island who lost control, and the Thug Patriarch. Everyone immediately looked at Han Fei, then at Olbai, and finally at Han Fei. Han Fei said helplessly, Old Han, you didn't tell me. Lurin Kwang asked, Who is Ren Tianfei? Olbai said, You don't need to know who he is. You only need to know that after he came out of the Immortal Palace, he was beaten by the big clans of the Thousand Star City and almost died. Han Guanshu, Han Fei's father, was the same. Even our Thug Patriarch was the same. Do those big clans care about the sea-quelling painting? No, what they really care about is the Immortal Palace. Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. F***CK. It seems that all 3 of them are related to me. Olbai said, The reason why I asked you to go to the Thousand Star City to rebuild the Thug Academy is only one of the reasons. More importantly, it is to find a way to enter the Immortal Palace under the pretext of rebuilding the Academy. Why do the 7 major sects want us to return? Why don't I agree? Because once I agree, although we have an alliance, we won't have any secrets. This is the crux of the problem. Luo Xiaobai frowned. But even if we find a way to enter the Immortal Palace, won't we follow in the footsteps of the 3 seniors? Zhang Xuanyu and Lurin Kwang nodded. Even a venerable had been defeated, and the Thug Patriarch had fallen. Who could withstand that? Now, the few of them didn't even have the cultivation of a law enforcer. Olbai smiled mysteriously. No, it's precisely because you are too weak that even if you find a way to enter the Immortal Palace, I'm afraid you won't be able to enter. And in this way, you may know and keep this secret. In the future, you can choose an opportunity to enter. Han Fei couldn't help but glance at Olbai. President, why don't you go find it? Olbai rolled his eyes. Us? Are we going to die? Do you really think those big clans in the Thousand Star City are useless? Han Fei thought to himself, after so many years, the Thug Academy hasn't been destroyed, has it? Suddenly, Han Fei thought, the Thug Academy still has a trump card. Yes, it must be so. Just now, Olbai took out a puppet. Was that puppet a clone of the Thug Patriarch, or something else? If this was the case, the Thug Academy should have a trump card that everyone didn't know. Otherwise, according to the nature of the big clans in the Thousand Star City, the Thug Academy should have been destroyed long ago. Sure enough, Olbai said, as long as the strong of the Thug Academy don't return to the Thousand Star City, They won't dare to act rashly. However, we have also lost the way to find the entrance to the immortal palace. Han Fei asked, can we? Old Bai nodded. You are special. Xiao Bai is from the Luo family. But you are complicated. They don't dare to touch you, nor do they dare to indulge you. With the Thug Academy and your father keeping an eye on you, your safety will be guaranteed. Zhang Xuanyu asked, what about Kuang Kuang and I? Old Bai said leisurely, you two can make up the numbers. Zhang Xuanyu, Luren Kuang, the two of them were speechless. In the end, the two of them became the numbers. Their young hearts suffered another blow that they shouldn't have suffered at their age. Old Bai said, okay, this time to the Thousand-Star City, you will definitely encounter a lot of difficulties. But they don't dare to deal with you openly. So, you can rebuild the Thug Academy with peace of mind. When you arrive at the Thousand-Star City, adapt to the situation. The rest of you can leave now. Han Fei stay. Chapter 980. After everybody left, Han Fei asked in surprise, Sir, why do you want to talk to me in private? Old Bai looked at Han Fei leisurely. In the future, your progress can't be too fast. Where will you go when you reach the peak of Law Enforcer one day? Han Fei pondered for a moment and decided not to tell Old Bai about the Shuemu sky for the time being. So Han Fei said, Old Han will find a place for me when the time comes. Old Bai nodded slightly. Yes, he couldn't make a breakthrough in the territory of the Thousand-Star City. From the moment you got the sea-quelling painting, countless people had their eyes on you all the time. Once you undergo tribulation here, even your father won't be able to save you. Since your father already has a plan, you should just let nature take its course. However, you'd better find a way to go to the Immortal Palace before you reach the peak of Law Enforcer. Otherwise, Han Fei. Otherwise, I'm afraid that once you become an explorer, the big clans in the Thousand-Star City will fall out with you even if you want to find them. After all, there is more than one venerable in the Thousand-Star City. Since your father can't suppress the Thousand-Star City, you won't have a chance either. Han Fei nodded. Got it. Old Han was a potential threat to the Thousand-Star City. He had already shown his face. On the surface, this game of chess had reached a stalemate, creating a temporary balance. Han Fei thought that their ultimate goal was the sea-quelling painting. But now, it seemed that wasn't the case. The real focus of the chess game was either to become a king or to unravel the mysteries of the Immortal Palace. Thinking of this, Han Fei felt that he was under great pressure. He had to find the Immortal Palace, go to the Waterwood Sky to become an explorer, and fight in the 10,000 Demon Valley. There were only 8 years left. Han Fei sighed gloomily. President, is there anything else you want to tell me? Old Bai took out 4 small bottles and said, These are Heaven Heart pills. 1 bottle for each of you. There are 2 pills in each bottle. The Heavenly Heart pill was used to comprehend the Heavenly Heart, but it wasn't that useful for law enforcers. It was mainly used to break through to law enforcer and become an explorer. In Old Zhang's words, this pill can not only increase the probability of a successful breakthrough by more than 30%, but also help you understand your own Tao. Hearing this, Han Fei quickly grabbed it. No matter what, it was good stuff. Increasing the probability of breaking through was already commendable. Enlightenment was even more precious. This is a good thing, I have to keep it. Old Bai rolled his eyes and said, You're too impatient. Anyway, you don't need it now. By the way, after going to the Thousand-Star City, he would have to accept disciples. Remember to bring back some outstanding seedlings. Han Fei pointed at himself and asked in shock, We accept them. Old Bai said lazily, How about I collect them? Han Fei said angrily, Aren't we going to find a way to enter the Divine Palace? Why are you still accepting disciples? Old Bai sneered. There are more than 3 places in the Thousand-Star City that are worth exploring. There was a place called the Thousand-Star Testing Field. Where do you think the disciples of the 7 major sects and clans in the Thousand-Star City have their trials? What do you mean? Old Bai stood up and said, The Thousand-Star Proving Ground is a trial ground that includes thousands of secret realms. According to the degree of danger, there were different levels of classification. From easy to difficult, there were 10 levels of danger. Basically, every sect and clan controlled dozens or even hundreds of secret realms. We also have to fight for them. Han Fei exclaimed, "Is there such a good thing? And there are secret realms waiting for others to take them?" Old Bai sneered, took out a sea-swallowing seashell, and handed it to Han Fei. "Open it when you're about to go to the 1,000-star proving ground." Old Bai said awkwardly, "Whether it's a good thing or not, you'll know when you go there." "Okay, I've told you everything. Remember, when you get to the 1,000-star city, you must be strong, strong, and strong. Anyone who dares to provoke you can be beaten or killed. Let's set off tomorrow morning." Early the next morning, Chu Jinan and Ling Yuan were sitting in the plantation, with a large pile of jade slips in front of them. The two of them didn't do anything for the whole night, just rubbing the jade slips. At this moment, their minds were in chaos, filled with all sorts of combat skills and cultivation methods. However, although Han Fei wanted to make use of free labor, there were indeed many heaven-level combat skills and cultivation techniques in these jade slips. At least, Chu Jinan and Ling Yuan felt that from today on, they didn't have to go to the logistics division to exchange for combat skills and secret techniques. At the same time, the two of them couldn't help but marvel. How many people did senior brother Han Fei rob to get so many combat skills and cultivation techniques? Biting a pot sticker, Han Fei walked into the plantation and chuckled. "Xiaonan, Ling Yuan, how are you doing?" The two of them raised their heads numbly, and Ling Yuan said, "Senior brother, it's almost done. You're leaving, right? Hurry up. It's important." Chu Jinan nodded. "Senior brother, it's done. Han Fei touched his nose. "Why does it sound like she wants to drive me away?" Han Fei said leisurely, "I just thought about it. The outer sea is too dangerous, so I have to let you adapt to it in advance. Forget it. I've learned something about the million knife art recently. Later, I'll hack you in the twisted jungle. Feel it." Chu Jinan and Ling Yuan shivered all over and looked at Han Fei speechlessly. Ling Yuan thought to herself, "Are you a devil? Before we left, you hacked us with a million knife art in the school. Then you hacked us to death. Now you're going to do it again?" Luo Xiaobai said, "Okay, Han Fei, don't bother them. Xiaonan and the others have done a good job. Is there anything else you haven't done? Hurry up and deal with it. We're ready to go." Ling Yuan and Chu Jinan both breathed a sigh of relief. Senior sister is really a deterrent. Unlike Han Fei, who always deliberately makes trouble. Han Fei smiled and said, "Don't. I haven't finished breakfast yet." Half an hour later, Chu Lin Yuan and Mu Qing Chuan sent Han Fei and the others out of the spiritual barrier. Chu Lin Yuan said, "Junior brother, junior sister, you're in the middle of a whirlpool. Be careful. However, don't be afraid if something happens. The Thug Academy will not be bullied." Mu Qing Chuan said with a smile, "Lin Yuan and I were going to go with you. However, we still have other things to do. So, everything in the 1,000-star city is up to you." Luo Xiaobai nodded. "Senior brother, senior sister, don't worry." Han Fei grinned and said, "Don't worry, senior brother. I'll write it down in my notebook if anyone comes looking for trouble. In the future, we'll find them one by one." Chu Lin Yuan. Then Han Fei shouted to the yard, "President, let's go." Old Bai said indifferently, "Go. Remember to recruit some excellent students." Not long after Han Fei and the others left, Chu Lin Yuan said to Chu Jinan and Ling Yuan, "Little junior brother, little junior sister, I'll leave the Scattered Stars Island to you in the future. Improve your strength and go to the Empyrean Waterfall as soon as possible." Ling Yuan said in surprise, "Senior brother Chu, senior sister Mu, are you leaving too?" Mu Qing Chuan said softly, "We all have our own things to deal with. And the two of you are the representatives of this generation on the Scattered Stars Island. When you grow up, the junior brothers and sisters behind you will all be under your control. This is not an easy task. You must bear it in mind." Chu Jinan took a breath and said very seriously, "Senior brother, senior sister, we will work hard." Chu Jinan, this upright little friend, seemed to feel that he was shouldering a heavy responsibility. But Ling Yuan saw it clearly. Han Fei and the others went to the 1,000-star city. So where were Chu Lin Yuan and the others going? It seemed that they were conspiring something. And she and Chu Jinan happened to be excluded from this matter. The Thug Academy seemed to be separated by the two of them. What was the story behind it? Outside the twisted jungle. Meow. As soon as Han Fei and the others came out of the jungle, they heard a cat's meow. Needless to say, it was Big Yellow. Sure enough, at this moment, Big Yellow was squatting there. Next to Big Yellow, Li Luo and Qing Chen were looking at them. Big Yellow's eyes were round. Han Fei, give me 2 more cats. Han Fei rolled his eyes. Are you making kittens again? What if you kill them again? Big Yellow turned his head. No, I'm training cats, slowly training them into powerful cats, and then I'll give birth to offspring, and the offspring will train the offspring again. In this way, I can slowly change their physiques. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. In order to find a female cat for him, Big Yellow is really going all out. He even plans to start training from the depths of their genes. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Han Fei frowned, and 2 cats, a male and a female, appeared and were grabbed by Big Yellow. Han Fei looked at Li Luo and Qing Chun and asked in surprise, "Why are you 2 here?" Qing Chun smiled and said, "Brother Han, I heard that you were going to the Thousand Star City. Ha ha, let's go together." Li Luo threw over 4 waist tags. I'm going too. For the time being, there are enough law enforcers on the Scattered Stars Island. I heard that the Thousand Star City is very interesting. I haven't been there yet, so I'm going to go with you. The moment Han Fei grabbed the 9-star waist tag, Shueshenqi's phantom appeared. Put away the waist tag. Good luck. Shueshenqi was as cold as ever and left after only saying a few words. And Han Fei and the others were thinking, whose subordinates are Li Luo and Qing Chen? As for Big Yellow, he had been watching Han Fei leave. It seemed that this friend was really not bad. In Big Yellow's memory, no one knew that he was a cat the first time he met him. Therefore, Big Yellow was a little disappointed to see Han Fei leave. Chapter 981. To go to the Sky Ladder, they had to go to the very small floating island where Han Fei and the others came from. And no one was more familiar with the way there than the Cloud Whale. Was it a coincidence or something? Anyway, when Han Fei and the others came to the big river, they saw the Cloud Whale turning and moving in the clouds. They didn't ask the Cloud Whale to land, but flew directly into the sky and came to the Cloud Whale in a moment. The Cloud Whale knew Han Fei. At this moment, when it saw Han Fei, it opened its mouth and rubbed its big head against Han Fei. Han Fei, who didn't exert any force, was sent flying by the Cloud Whale. Han Fei smiled and said, "Big guy, I'll treat you to crab." With that, Han Fei took out a crab more than 20 meters long and threw it into the Cloud Whale's mouth. Woo, creak, crushing the crab in one bite. The Cloud Whale happily circled around and pushed Han Fei and the others up. Lying on the Cloud Whale's big head, Li Luo turned to look at Han Fei and said, "Han Fei, you seem to have a better relationship with the Cloud Whale than others." Qing Chen smiled and said, "This is the benefit of feeding it." Han Fei smiled and said, "Of course. I feed it every time." With that said, Han Fei patted the Cloud Whale and said, "Big guy, please send us to the Sky Ladder. You know where it is, right? It's next to the floating island." Woo, the Cloud Whale flicked its tail, scattered a white cloud, and disappeared into the clouds. Han Fei looked at Li Luo and Qing Chen. "Why do you 2 want to go to the Thousand Star City? Are you not happy on the Scattered Stars Island?" Qing Chen was chewing dried fish in his mouth. After becoming a law enforcer, there is nothing to challenge. After the last war, the sea demons suffered heavy casualties. I'm afraid they won't come back in a short time. Li Luo said, "I heard that the Thousand Star City is interesting. There are many ancient things. I want to go and have a look." Han Fei curled his lips. No matter whether the 2 of them were telling the truth or not, they were not competitors anyway. He couldn't stop them, could he? Zhang Xuanyu approached Li Luo and said, "Miss, do you remember me?" Li Luo glanced at Zhang Xuanyu and raised her eyebrows. "I don't remember." Zhang Xuanyu didn't mind. Instead, he smiled and said, "Then let's get to know each other again. Miss, look at my looks, and then look at your looks. Do we have anything in common?" Li Luo looked at Zhang Xuanyu for a while and asked, "What's in common?" Zhang Xuanyu chuckled. "One is handsome, and the other is beautiful." Hey, who's pulling me? Whoosh. A vine wrapped around Zhang Xuanyu and threw him into the air. Obviously, Luo Xiaobai couldn't bear it anymore. The cloud whale even whimpered and tilted its body, as if it were considering if it should give Zhang Xuanyu a hand. But seeing that Zhang Xuanyu had flown back on his own, he continued to fly forward. Zhang Xuanyu returned to the cloud whale and heaved a long sigh. He sat down next to Lu Rinquang and ate sea melon seeds with him. Luo Xiaobai said, "The sky-to-heaven ladder is not simple. Anyone who entered the thousand-star city through the ladder to heaven would have permanent residency in the thousand-star city. Besides, the sky-to-heaven ladder is also a kind of test." Han Fei asked, "What test?" Luo Xiaobai said, "The 7 major sects will send invitations to those who enter the thousand-star city through the sky-to-heaven ladder. Therefore, on the sky-to-heaven ladder, there will be tests set up by the 7 major sects along the way. Of course, it's not mandatory." Li Luo asked, "How do you know? Aren't you from the town?" Luo Xiaobai paused. "I read about it." Han Fei asked, "Is it difficult?" Luo Xiaobai nodded. "I don't know." Qing Chen smiled. "I know. I heard that it's quite difficult. However, it doesn't seem to be very difficult. Almost all the people who have climbed the Empyrean waterfall have passed." Han Fei raised his eyebrows. "Why almost? Shouldn't it be all of them?" In Han Fei's opinion, no one who could go to the Empyrean waterfall was simple. Was there anyone who couldn't go up? Luo Xiaobai nodded. "It shouldn't be that exaggerated. Among the 7 major sects, the Sea Cloud Tower is the most low-key, and the test set by the Sea Cloud Tower is also the most difficult. Even if someone didn't pass, it should be the Sea Cloud restaurant that blocked them." Han Fei was slightly surprised. Indeed, as one of the 7 major sects, the Sea Cloud Tower was too insignificant. The Heavenly Sword sect was the most high-profile, and the Jade Fairy Palace was full of girls. It was a paradise for people like Zhang Xuanyu. Therefore, he was the most famous. The Grand Void Academy, the Mountain Sea Pavilion, the Origin Returning Peak, and the Death Door sect each had their own strengths. As for the Sea Cloud Tower, although it belonged to the 7 major sects, Han Fei found that he hadn't met many people from the Sea Cloud Tower. The only one he had seen a few times was Cosine. However, he didn't seem to be very strong. There was nothing special about him that made people remember him. The Sword of the Heavenly Sword sect, the Girl of the Jade Fairy Palace, the Head of the Death Door sect, the Void Sword of the Grand Void Academy, the physique of the disciples of the Mountain Sea Pavilion, and the comprehensive strength of the Origin Returning Peak were all impressive, but the Sea Cloud Tower didn't. What kind of academy is the Sea Cloud Tower? Luo Xiaobai shook her head slightly and said, "I'm not familiar with the 7 major sections. I'll know when I go up there." The cloud whale was a strange creature that specialized in flying. It was very fast and only took 3 hours to arrive. Han Fei and the others jumped off the cloud whale, and Han Fei stuffed a big octopus into the cloud whale's mouth. "Thank you, big guy." Wu, the cloud whale's voice was ethereal, resounding between heaven and earth. It turned around and disappeared into the clouds again, swimming alone in the sky. Turning around, Han Fei and the others looked at the so-called sky ladder. When they first saw this place, they thought it was a hanging ladder and they had to climb up with both hands and feet. In fact, when they got here, Han Fei and the others found that the so-called sky ladder just looked like a hanging ladder, but in fact, it was more like a flaming staircase hanging in the air. However, from the direction of the floating island, they could only see one side of it, which showed the image of a hanging ladder. The sky ladder was like a burning chain of fire. In fact, except for the burning part, the rest of the place was blank. They could only confirm where the road was through the flaming chains. Han Fei tried to stand in the blank space outside the flames. However, if he didn't do it on purpose, his body would begin to fall. Only by standing on the invisible flaming chain could he really stand still. However, once he stood on the flaming chain, he would directly become a flaming man. These flames not only had the heat of flames, but also seemed to have a slight impact on the soul. Li Luo immediately shouted, "Can't we just stand on it?" Li Luo stood directly on the second flaming chain, but she couldn't stand on it at all. Luo Xiaobai nodded. I think we need to go step by step. Otherwise, if we fly all the way along the flaming chain, wouldn't we reach the thousand-star city? Lurin Quang's face trembled. It shouldn't be that simple. At this moment, Han Fei stepped from the first flaming chain to the second flaming chain. With a stomp, he disappeared in front of Luo Xiaobai and the others. Qing Chun screamed, "Hey, there's something wrong with the space." Zhang Xuanyu shrugged and said, "Fine, we can only go floor by floor." Then, after they walked to the second floor, they saw Han Fei. At this moment, the 5 flaming men looked at each other, staring at each other. Han Fei asked, "I don't know how many floors there are on the sky ladder. However, the intensity of the flames and the degree of soul shock will become stronger and stronger." "Hey, Xiaobai, are you going too?" Luo Xiaobai said lightly, "I'll go with you." Han Fei thought, "That's right. Luo Xiaobai probably won't be happy to go back through the teleportation array." Lurin Quang had already stepped out, muttering, "Since I went to the ancient battlefield, my soul has been greatly improved. Let's go, hurry up." They walked all the way up 4,000 steps, and they had all changed into low-quality divine battle suits. The main reason was that if they didn't change, their clothes would be burned, not because they were too hot or couldn't resist the flames. After Han Fei and the others stepped over this step, Han Fei seemed to see a fist light, which was as strong as a peak-level hidden fissure. Unhurriedly, Han Fei punched out and easily shattered the blow. The others also did the same. Perhaps the sky ladder was difficult for others to climb. Any attack was at the level of a peak-level hidden fissure. But the 5 people here were all comparable to law enforcers. How could they be afraid of this attack? On the 5,000th floor, a sword light swept over and was shattered. On the 6,000th floor, there were still sword lights, but the speed was extremely fast. Han Fei recognized at a glance that this was a combat skill of the Jade Fairy Palace, but he still easily shattered it. The 7,000th floor was a door. The 8,000th floor was a sea of swords. The 9,000th floor was a weird, demonic sound. Among the crowd, Lurin Quang was a little uncomfortable, but he still walked over. It could be seen that Lurin Quang didn't eat those pure soul beads for nothing. Han Fei smiled and said, "After all, it's still a hidden fissure-level assessment. Although the temperature of the flames is no longer the same as before, it's not impossible to resist." Luo Xiaobai nodded. "The soul shock is not that strong. Let's see the last assessment." Han Fei suspected that this so-called sky ladder was still on the 9,999th floor. If it was not set by the Thousand-Star City, it must be set by the Yin Yang Palace. That's why it was surprisingly similar. When Han Fei stepped into the 9,999th floor, he suddenly fell into a momentary daze. He saw Lin Miao Miao attacking him. Huh, a mental demon? Chapter 982. Han Fei frowned. Why is it always Lin Miao Miao who has a mental demon? This is not the first time. In the past, he deliberately wanted to cut off the extremely short karma with Lin Miao Miao. But this time, it directly turned into a mental demon. This made Han Fei a little hesitant, although it was indeed because of him that Lin Miao Miao died. However, he had already taken his revenge. Was it not enough? Han Fei knew that it was his fault that a mental demon appeared. He thought it was enough to kill Sun Mu. But now that Sun Mu had been killed, Lin Miao Miao would still appear. He couldn't help recalling what Lin Miao Miao had said to him during the days when she was his guide. It must be because she said something that he remembered so deep in his heart, he couldn't forget it. But he couldn't remember it now. At this moment, feeling his soul shaking, Han Fei closed his eyes. His whole body flashed with golden light, and he punched out, shattering the mental demon with the invincible heart. At this moment, Han Fei decided, no way. I have to find a time to go to the level 3 fishery and bring back Lin Miao Miao's body. Suddenly, Han Fei felt his eyes light up. When he stepped on the last fire chain, his vision changed, and he was standing on a circular platform. Around the platform, there were 3 stone pillars. The stone pillars were smooth and without carvings. On the top of the stone pillars, there was a beautiful spirit swallowing fish in a unique style. This platform was independent and suspended in the air, about 10 kilometers away from the floating island in front of him. At this moment, in the air, there were 7 people standing. Their clothes were different, and it could be seen that they were disciples of the 7 major sections. And these people were all law enforcers, and none of them were hidden fishers. In addition to these 7 people, on the edge of the floating island 10 kilometers away, there was another person standing who didn't look like a member of the 7 major sections. However, he looked arrogant. He should be here to pick a fight. You knew we would come, so you waited for us here? With a thought, Han Fei put on a set of clothes and put away his battle suit. Among the 7 major sects, the people of the Heavenly Sword sect were particularly easy to recognize. After seeing Han Fei, they just smiled and asked, Han Fei? Han Fei nodded. It's me, the man said softly. Although I know your relationship with Tengu, we still have to take your relationship with the Thug Academy seriously. Will you join my Heavenly Sword sect, or will you choose to do that thing? Shua shua. As they spoke, Luo Xiaobai and the others appeared one after another, and the flames on their bodies had just disappeared. Hearing that person question, Luo Xiaobai simply said, We want to rebuild the Thug Academy. Li Luo heaved a sigh of relief. It turns out that the last pass is the mental demon. Otherwise, Li Luo will suffer. Han Fei shivered slightly and looked at Li Luo. Brother Kwong? Li Luo nodded solemnly, and then looked at the people of the 7 major sections. What? Is there still an assessment? I would like to learn a thing or two from you. Qing Chen asked in astonishment. Li Luo, when did you become an official? Li Luo raised her chin and looked at Qing Chen. I'm Li Kwong. Don't mention Li Luo to me. As soon as Qing Chen was about to speak, Zhang Xuanyu put his arm around his neck. Brother Chen, the law enforcers of the Heavenly Sword sect, or rather, the law enforcers of the 7 major sects, actually didn't resist the Thug Academy, especially the Heavenly Sword sect, mainly because Tengu and Mu Ling were about to get married, and both sides had venerables behind them. And venerables were a deterrent in the Thousand-Star City in this era. It was unlikely that they would actually take action, and Han Guanshu was a special kind of venerables. He was the father of the 2 children, not an ancestor. Therefore, his existence would be even more of a deterrent. Therefore, under the influence of the Heavenly Sword sect, the 7 major sects didn't resist the Thug Academy very much. So the powerhouse of the Heavenly Sword sect looked at Li Luo and Qing Chen. Before that person spoke, Qing Chen said directly, I heard that the Mountain Sea Pavilion is famous for body refining. The law enforcer of the Mountain Sea Pavilion was a little surprised. He thought that Han Fei and the others wouldn't choose the 7 major sects, but he didn't expect Qing Chen to ask this, which surprised him. The man smiled and said, Of course, among the 7 major sects, only the Mountain Sea Pavilion has the highest achievements in body refining. You have become a law enforcer. If you want to be a disciple, you can directly become a core student at the level of a last disciple. Of course, if you are willing to teach in the Mountain Sea Pavilion, you need to reach an agreement with the Mountain Sea Pavilion. During the agreement period, most of the resources and information in the Mountain Sea Pavilion can be shared with you. Qing Chen glanced at Han Fei. You know, this is my path. Han Fei nodded. Whatever you want. Qing Chen took a step forward and grinned. I'll go to the Mountain Sea Pavilion. By the way, does your school provide food? The law enforcer of the Mountain Sea Pavilion was stunned. What kind of question is this? You're a cultivator. What food do you want to eat? However, the man still grinned and said, Of course, a law enforcer can eat anything he wants. Qing Chen looked back at Han Fei and thought to himself, this guy is a master chef, the peak kind. However, compared with the temptation of delicious food, cultivation is more important. Then, the law enforcer of the Jade Fairy Palace looked at Li Luo and said, Miss, you have also been promoted to a law enforcer. Your treatment is similar to that of the Mountain Sea Pavilion. Our Jade Fairy Palace is different from the Heavenly Sword sect. There are many hunters and manipulators in our Jade Fairy Palace, and we also have powerful soul warriors. What do you think, miss? Li Luo frowned. Miss, why should I go to a place where a group of women stay? No, everyone. The group of people was dumbfounded. Why do you look like A.F. Asterisk King Man? She looked delicate, although she was a little flashy. How could this be related to a man? Han Fei and the others were also speechless. They had already seen Li Kuang's character. He was a fool. He should choose one of the Mountain Sea Pavilion, the Origin Returning Peak, or the Sea Cloud Tower. However, Li Kuang suddenly looked at Han Fei. I heard that you're going to establish a school, right? Han Fei raised his eyelids. In fact, we don't count. We don't have benefits, and it's very troublesome to clean up the old site. Kuang. Brother Kuang, you can help yourself. The 7 major sects. Those people were wondering if they were blind. Brother Kuang? Nowadays, people don't care about gender when they make friends. Zhang Xuanyu seemed to want to say something, but Luo Xiaobai glared at him. However, they were not fools. Li Luo was definitely a woman. As for why Li Kuang appeared, it was very likely that there was something wrong with her soul. However, they suddenly heard the female law enforcer of the Sea Cloud Tower say, "You can come to our Sea Cloud Tower. Half of the men and half of the women are here." Li Kuang paused. Let's see if you can beat me first. After that, Li Luo took a step forward and a long stick appeared in her hand. She waved the stick and 7-colored light appeared behind her. The female law enforcer of the Sea Cloud Tower's face suddenly changed. She looked solemn, and behind her an undead creature appeared, dressed in black armor, with a ferocious face, and took Li Luo's stick with its big hand. Bam! At that moment, in the 7-colored light, a cyan light suddenly burst out. The law enforcer of the Sea Cloud Tower cursed and quickly retreated, and the undead creature was purified by this cyan light in an instant. The power of life? After a short confrontation, it was obvious that the person from the Sea Cloud Tower suffered a loss. Of course, it was mainly because she didn't know Li Luo's means. In fact, none of them knew that Li Luo had such means. What was this 7-colored light? Among them, a ray of light contained vitality and directly purified the undead creature, which seemed a bit weird. Li Luo withdrew her stick and said arrogantly, "Humph, I'm not going." Suddenly, Li Luo's body in the air suddenly stiffened. Han Fei and the others thought, not good. Is she going to transform at this time? What the hell is she doing? Shouldn't she transform after being stimulated? Why is she going to transform now? Seeing that the makeup on Li Luo's face had returned, Han Fei knew that the main personality had returned. Li Luo landed directly on the platform and looked at Han Fei. I'm going to the Thug Academy. Luo Xiaobai asked why. Li Luo smiled and said, "You guys are more interesting, and there are fewer people." Zhang Xuanyu quickly said, Welcome. Let me tell you, the greatest benefit of our Thug Academy is that there are a lot of delicious food. Luo Kuang nodded repeatedly. Yes, I can prove it. The people from the 7 major sects were a little speechless. What the hell are these people? They're crazy. Their soul problems are so serious that they don't need to be recruited. The law enforcer of the Heavenly Sword sect cupped his hands to Han Fei and said, "In that case, we won't stay any longer." The sky-reaching stairway was originally prepared for ordinary people with some talent. I know you are extraordinary. See you later. Han Fei nodded and suddenly asked, by the way, when is Tanggu and Mu Ling's wedding? The law enforcer of the Heavenly Sword sect said with a smile, 3 months later, someone will go to your school to send an invitation. Just when the people of the 7 major sects were about to leave, they suddenly heard the person on the edge of the cliff of the floating island 10 kilometers away sneer. Is this how the 7 major sects assess you? Since when can you enter the 1,000-star city casually? As soon as he said this, Han Fei and the others frowned. Who is this? Chapter 983. Han Fei and the others were here to grab territory and rise again. In the face of provocation, Old Bai specifically told them to be tough and emphasized it more than once. Therefore, Han Fei certainly wouldn't be so cowardly at this moment. Han Fei sneered. Which family are you from? If you are not from the 7 major sects, then you must be from an aristocratic family. The Chao family is arrogant, and I don't think they will come here. So who do you think you are? If Han Fei didn't dare to fight with old Han behind him, he would be a real coward. Luo Kuang took a breath. Believe it or not, I can blow you to death. Zhang Xuanyu smiled contemptuously. What? Does the Thousand-Star City belong to you? The law enforcer of the Heavenly Sword sect said indifferently, Chu Xiao, the Thousand-Star City has no reason to stop you. It's not your Chu family's business, is it? The young man named Chu Xiao chuckled and shook his head. That depends on what they are here for. If they come to the Thousand-Star City to pursue a higher position, I have nothing to say about it. However, as we all know, he's just a bumpkin. He thinks he can do whatever he wants with a sea-quelling painting. If he really thinks he can become a king in a few years, that will be the biggest joke in the world. Chu Xiao stepped in the air step by step and looked at Han Fei. The reason why the Chu sect doesn't compete for the sea-quelling painting is that we don't think the sea-quelling painting has any real significance. It's ridiculous to become a king with a painting. If a king can become a king in this way, what's the point of thousands of people working hard to cultivate? Don't you think so? Hoop! The phantom glass wings spread out, and Han Fei also stepped into the sky. You're right. A painting is indeed not enough to become a king. However, since the Chu sect doesn't compete for the painting, why are you so nervous? It's none of your business who gets the painting. Besides, do you think that your Chu sect can compete for it? Han Fei was talking tough, but he was thinking, why did the Chu sect attack twice? It doesn't seem to be targeting me, but the Thug Academy? But why is the Chu sect targeting the Thug Academy? What's the relationship between the Chu sect and the Thug Academy? The two of them were arguing, and Li Luo was very excited. I like this. I want to beat this kind of idiot. Let me help. Li Luo was about to go over when Luo Xiaobai stopped her. Luo Xiaobai said one-on-one. It's fair. Thinking of Han Fei's means, Li Luo had no choice but to raise her little fist. Han Fei, come on, beat him to death. Han Fei grinned. How so? Today I'm going to ask the Thousand-Star City, will they let us in or not? How confident are you that you can stop me? Chu Xiao looked at Han Fei up and down. Extremely conceited, a peak-level hidden fisher. Do you think you are your father? Han Fei sneered. I've never mentioned him. I don't know if I'm being conceited. However, I really don't think it's a big problem to beat someone like you. Chu Xiao grinned. Suddenly, the void trembled, and the pressure of his spiritual soul descended and exploded. Zhang Xuanyu's expression changed. Not good, it's a soul explosion. The people from the 7 great sects were also horrified. The law enforcer from the Heavenly Sword sect had an ugly expression on his face. He was prepared to step in and help if anything went wrong. After all, Han Fei hadn't become a law enforcer yet. He had to be careful when facing the soul explosion of a law enforcer. What made them feel ashamed was that this Chu Xiao was extremely shameless. If you want to fight, you should at least suppress your strength to that of a peak-level hidden fisher. How would you fight now? However, in the terrifying soul explosion, Han Fei didn't even blink his eyelids. Han Fei sneered in his heart. These people don't know how much soul power I have now. At that moment, Han Fei activated Devil Change, and his figure instantly disappeared. In the void, 3 spikes broke through the void and went straight to Chu Xiao. Han Fei's voice echoed in the air. Is this all the Chu sect's roadblock is capable of? Swish! Chu Xiao jumped directly into the sky. Fighting at close range was easy to cause damage. However, judging from his reaction speed at that moment, his speed was extremely fast, reminding Han Fei of a Yi family. Swish! 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 The two of them jumped up quickly, attracting a lot of people's attention. Except for Luo Xiaobai and the others, there were people watching in other places. In fact, there were even some experts who were observing in secret. It was not until the altitude of 8,000 meters that the two began to fight. The 3 demon-slaying spikes, like 3 cloud-piercing arrows, revolved directly around Chu Xiao. Chu Xiao didn't use the power of loss. He seemed to be testing Han Fei's strength, and was taking them with his bare hands. Clang! A crisp sound vibrated in everyone's ears. Chu Xiao sneered. Your strength is not bad, but are you sure you want to fight me with a semi-divine weapon? Bam! 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 As soon as Chu Xiao finished speaking, the 3 demon-slaying spikes exploded at the same time, like a thunderbolt in the clear sky. Standing above the clouds, Han Fei tilted his head and smiled. This kind of thing is no different from a disposable item for me. However, the taste of self-destruction is not good, is it? Looking at Chu Xiao, who was sent flying dozens of kilometers away, Han Fei put on a brilliant smile and shook his head. TSK, TSK, TSK. When I first heard of Southern Chao and Northern Chu, I thought the Chu sect would be very powerful. It turns out that they are just SOSO. In terms of the ability to mock people, Han Fei was nothing. If this were on the Scattered Stars Island, Han Fei would have scolded Chu Xiao. However, now he needed to maintain his image. After all, the Thug Academy still had to recruit disciples in the Thousand-Star City. He had to keep a low profile. However, Han Fei felt that Yu Shire's self-destruction was really cool. Looking at Chu Xiao's face that was blown up, he could finally understand the joy of Yu Shire's self-destruction. Chu Xiao, who was blown back, looked cold. How could he have expected that Han Fei would blow up 3 semi-divine weapons so casually? No matter how poor their grade was, they were still semi-divine weapons. And this kind of thing was relatively rare in human society. In terms of the power of self-destruction, it was comparable to the attack of a law enforcer. Therefore, those who didn't have a strong physique would feel their blood freeze after being hit by it. Chu Xiao, who didn't wear a battle suit at all, was blown up with holes all over his clothes and more than 10 scratches all over his body. It was almost impossible to hurt his foundation. However, Han Fei felt it was worth it to make the other party so embarrassed. Chu Xiao said with a twisted face, "You want to do this the hard way? You're courting death." All of a sudden, Chu Xiao's body turned into a cloud of mist. A large expanse of whiteness rolled towards Han Fei. Seeing this scene, Han Fei frowned slightly. There were some people that Han Fei particularly hated, those who could turn into sand, shadows, and other special things. In this case, it was very difficult to defeat them. Of course, it was not impossible to deal with them. For example, as long as he used the Yin-Yang Divine Eyes and the Void Lines, Han Fei was confident that he could press the other party to the ground. Even if the fog was Chu Xiao's law enforcer ability, he could still beat him. In addition, the law of gravity could also be used, but Han Fei didn't want to expose it. After all, he couldn't kill Chu Xiao now, because Han Fei felt that a terrifying strong master was watching the battle. Since he couldn't kill him, why would he expose the law of gravity? It was really unwise. Maybe this person was sent to test his strength. As for using the invincible fist technique, it was like using an anti-aircraft gun to kill a mosquito, and it was easy to arouse people's fear. In this case, Han Fei grinned and said, "Is this your law enforcer ability? I just want to say one word to you, trash." No one responded, but Han Fei sensed that the cloud contained great lethality. If he hadn't broken through the 3rd level of the indestructible body art, Han Fei wouldn't have chosen to fight head-on. However, at this moment, Han Fei didn't move at all, letting the cloud cover him. Below, Qing Chun said in surprise, "Why doesn't Han Fei make a move?" Li Luoluo said, "Strange law enforcer." Although Han Fei is a body cultivator, the other party is a law enforcer after all. The law enforcer of the Sea Cloud Tower said, "Chu Xiao's law enforcer is corrosive. Whether it's his body or his soul, what does Han Fei want to do?" The law enforcer of the Grand Void Academy said with a faint smile, "Although I don't know what Han Fei's purpose is. Although I don't know Han Fei's purpose, this guy is not willing to suffer losses." Just as everyone was talking, above the sky, a pillar of fire descended. In the daytime, in the universe, Han Fei directly activated the void fishing art. He knew that in this way, some people would definitely doubt Han Fei's cultivation method. But compared with the cultivation method, what attracted more attention was his physique. After all, the vast majority of cultivation methods would attract the scorching fire of the sun when they were activated under the scorching sun. However, it was generally not so exaggerated, and ordinary people couldn't bear it. A large array emerged, and Han Fei directly trapped this cloud with the coiled turtle array. When the terrifying fire of the sun fell from the sky, in an instant, a scream broke out. "Han Fei, you're courting death." An angry roar broke out above the clouds. Without a strong enough physique, Not everyone would be able to withstand this force. With Han Fei's current realm and physique, he could hold it for 5 minutes. At this moment, after just 1 minute, Chu Xiao had to return to his original body. Below, the people of the 7 major sects were all stunned. Someone exclaimed, "Is he crazy?" Someone sighed. There's something wrong with the cultivation method. However, this is a move that hurts both the enemy and himself. The law enforcer of the mountain, Sea Pavilion, grinned and said, "Hurt? Look, Han Fei's physique, TSK. It's very strong. It's the kind of physique that can refine a golden body." As for Luo Xiaobai and the others, they looked calm. In their view, at this time, Han Fei was in his peak period. Ordinary law enforcers couldn't shake him at all. This had been proven countless times, so there was no need to be surprised. In the second minute, Chu Xiao's whole body cracked. Although he was wearing a divine battle suit, it was still difficult for him to resist this terrifying scorching force. Chu Xiao tried to break the coiled turtle array, but Han Fei's phantom glass wings and agility of wind were not just for show. Han Fei smiled and said, "Aren't you here to test me? Don't be a coward. Keep doing it." In the third minute, Chu Xiao's whole body was bleeding. His hair and whatnot had all been burned away. His skin was burnt all over, and he was about to be completely cooked. Suddenly, a muffled groan came from the sky. Someone broke through the coiled turtle array with one hand and grabbed Chu Xiao out. But at the moment when he was grabbed out, Chu Xiao was already dying. If he weren't a law enforcer, if he didn't have a divine battle suit, he would have been reduced to ashes by now. After stopping the cultivation method, Han Fei was in his peak state. When he came down from the sky, his hair was growing, his clothes were changed, and he casually cast the divine healing technique on himself. The thin cracks on his body were recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. This showed how abnormal Han Fei's physique was. Chapter 984. Han Fei landed and looked at the man who was holding Chu Xiao in his hand. At this moment, the man was using a healing technique on Chu Xiao, and the latter was also recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Han Fei narrowed his eyes slightly. This person must be a peak-level law enforcer. Otherwise, an ordinary law enforcer shouldn't be able to heal a person so quickly. At the same time, Han Fei also realized a problem. That was, as old Zhang once said, the more powerful a spirit gatherer was, the more powerful he would be. In the past, spirit gatherers were the targets of the whole team's protection. At the level of peak-level law enforcer, he had the means to attack and the ability to recover, and his spiritual energy wouldn't run out easily. Whenever he set up a spirit gathering array, spiritual energy would continuously pour into him. This was what a law enforcer should be like. Once he became an explorer, the spirit gatherer would only become stronger and stronger. Maybe he would slowly become an unkillable cockroach. Han Fei looked at the man and said, "A peak-level law enforcer? It's not right for you to stop us, right?" The middle-aged man took a deep look at Han Fei. The people of the Thug Academy are really the same. Humph. With that, the middle-aged man grabbed Chu Xiao and left in a few steps without saying much to Han Fei and the others. The law enforcers looked at each other. The arrogance of the Thug Academy was indeed passed down from generation to generation. At this moment, they cupped their hands and said goodbye. When Han Fei and the others landed on the island of the Thousand-Star City, they looked around and found that no one lived here. But the ground in front of them was carved sapphire bricks, and there were a few human-shaped statues not far away, which seemed to be welcoming people coming up from the sky ladder. In the distance, they could see the outline of buildings, which seemed quite tall. Qing Chun had already left with a mountain sea pavilion. Han Fei and the others looked directly at Luo Xiaobai. It was the first time for them to come here, and they were completely unfamiliar with the Thousand-Star City. Now, they only saw a corner of it and didn't fly into the air, so they didn't know how big this so-called Thousand-Star City was. How many islands were there? What kind of layout was it? Luo Xiaobai said, "I don't like shopping." However, the entire Thousand-Star City is mainly composed of 36 floating islands and several small floating islands. Those very small floating islands are not included because they are too small. The whole place should be a little bigger than the Scattered Stars Island, about 5 or 6 times. Pooh! Han Fei and the others almost burst out laughing, all dumbfounded. What the hell? The Thousand-Star City was 5 or 6 times larger than the Scattered Stars Island. Li Luoluo was surprised. Are you from the Thousand-Star City? Zhang Xuan, you what? Then where should we fly to? Where is the former site of the Thug Academy? Lu Rinquang counted his fingers and said, So, this place is equivalent to 10,000 kilometers long. Right at this moment, they saw an old man in plain gray clothes flying over. Miss, this old servant is late. Miss, are you all right? Luo Xiaobai bowed slightly and said, Grandpa Ku. The old man's face was brimming with a bright smile as he said, Miss, Master wants to know if you want to bring your fellow disciples back to the mansion to stay for a few days or what. Luo Xiaobai shook her head slightly. No, let's go to the old site of the Thug Academy. Grandpa Ku, just tell us where it is. We can go there ourselves. The old man smiled and said, How can that be? Since this old servant is here, I will naturally lead you there. With that said, the old man looked at Han Fei and the others with a smile. I'm Ku Shui. Greetings, young masters. The former site of the Thug Academy has long been dilapidated. If we go there now, we may have to clean it up. In Han Fei's eyes, this old man was clearly a strong law enforcer and was by no means an ordinary person. However, Luo Xiaobai's father was also an explorer, so it was normal for him to have such an old servant. This was the heritage of a big family. Even though Luo Xiaobai said that their family had declined, they were still not comparable to ordinary families. Han Fei cupped his hands and said, Then please lead the way, Senior Ku. Ku Shui waved his hand and a fishing boat appeared. Han Fei and the others were surprised. Can we take fishing boats in the Thousand-Star City? Ku Shui smiled and said, Of course. You can also fly with wings. After all, the Thousand-Star City is relatively large. Even some people who live in the Thousand-Star City often get lost. Lu Rinquang said, Senior, can you give us a brief introduction first? Zhang Xuanyu echoed. Yes, let's talk about the 7 major sects and families in the Thousand-Star City first. Are they all on the centermost island? Where's our Thug Academy? What new about this place? It was useless to ask Luo Xiaobai about Han Fei and the others' questions. When she was a child, she didn't even bring money when she went out. She probably didn't go out much in the past. However, Luo Xiaobai had a good memory. Although she was not familiar with the roads, she was definitely familiar with the places. Luo Xiaobai said, Grandpa Ku, in the next 2 days, make a copy of some of the materials and ancient books about the Thousand-Star City and bring them over. Yes, Mississippi Ku Shui smiled and said, Young masters, in fact, this Thousand-Star City is a little different from what you think. The 7 major sects are not in the inner circle, and not all the big families are in the inner circle. You can imagine this place as a large circular island. In the center, it is called the Central Divine Throne, which has also become a city of sacrifices. It is said to be the place where the gods live. It is blocked by a terrifying killing array, and even venerable powerhouses don't dare to set foot there. Surrounding the Central Divine Throne are the 3 holy lands of the Thousand-Star City, namely the Monument to God, the Sky Meditation Garden, and the Ideal Palace. Each of the 3 holy lands occupies an island. On the periphery of the 3 holy lands, there are 6 floating islands. These places are inhabited by the most powerful families in the Thousand-Star City. In total, there are 18 families. On average, there are 3 big families on each island. Han Fei suddenly asked, What about the Chao family and the Chu sect? Ku Shui smiled and said, The Chu sect and the Chao family are in the south, and the Chu sect in the north. So, they're naturally in the south and north of the entire Thousand-Star City. And our current position is a little north. That's why people from the Chu sect came over just now. And the Chao family and the Chu sect are also the only 2 families in the entire Thousand-Star City that occupy an island. The reason was that there was a venerable realm expert present. This was something that was clearly displayed. But doesn't it mean that the other families don't have venerables? Li Luoluo asked curiously why. Ku Shui didn't hide it. He just smiled and said, I don't know if you know about the lifespan of cultivators. After a cultivator becomes a great fishing master, he will have a lifespan of 200 years. After breaking through the barrier of a hidden fisher, he will have a lifespan of 800 years. And a law enforcer is the transition from a hidden fisher to an explorer. They haven't entered the Tao yet, so they are not much stronger than a hidden fisher. It varies from person to person, but generally, it's about 1,200 years. Only when you break through to an explorer, your lifespan will increase to about 2,000 years. Everyone asked, "What about venerables?" Ku Shui said, "Venerables, 5,000 years." This also varies from person to person, and there is no Tao to restrict them. But after the 5,000 years of lifespan, their comprehensive strength will begin to slowly decline. Powerhouses who have reached the end of their lifespan have to be careful every time they make a move. Perhaps it was no longer a battle. Maybe they are fighting for their lifespan. Han Fei and the others raised their eyelids. So exaggerated? Ku Shui said with a smile. In fact, not necessarily. Some people exhaust their lifespan in advance. Some people increase their lifespan through natural treasures, and some people possess bodies to be reborn. However, it is said that the Sea Expansion King has a lifespan of 10,000 years. I don't know. There are also legends that some powerhouses can incarnate into the heavenly Tao and live as long as the heavens. They only exist in legends. Zhang Xuanyu took a breath. So, the venerables don't fight because they want to live longer and can't fight at will? Ku Shui nodded slightly. Yes, there's a reason. Some people even need to seal themselves to a certain extent. However, this is not absolute. For example, a venerable powerhouse doesn't need to spend his lifespan to fight the young masters, unless the young masters have already become explorers. Han Fei asked, "What about the venerables who have a lifespan of less than 5,000 years?" Han Fei asked the question on behalf of Old Han. He thought that Old Han should be very young, right? Ku Shui looked at Han Fei with a smile. Of course, he knew what Han Fei was referring to. He said, "Then they don't have any scruples and can keep fighting. And when necessary, they can even burn their lifespan, which is extremely terrifying." Only then did Han Fei understand. It turned out that Old Han's greatest deterrent was still here. Others had to overdraft their lifespan to fight, but he could keep fighting. Who wouldn't be afraid of him? Of course, Han Fei didn't believe that all the ancestors of the big families in the Thousand-Star City had reached the end of their lifespan. There must be more than one or two of them who hadn't reached the end of their lifespan. Otherwise, with the pride in Old Han's bones, he would have beaten them until their scalps went numb and their lifespans ran out. Li Luolua's eyes were firm. "I want to become a venerable." Han Fei and the others glanced at her, thinking, "Do I need you to tell me that? 5,000 years. If my conditions are good, I can live for 7,000 or 8,000 years. Then I'll be lucky." Luo Xiaobai said, "It's meaningless to remember this. Once one's lifespan is up, there is basically no hope for a breakthrough. So if you want to fight, you have to fight within 1,000 years." Ku Shui chuckled and said, "Miss, you're right. If you want to fight, you have to fight within 1,000 years. For many heavenly talents, they may be able to become explorers or even venerables in a few hundred years. However, the step of sea expansion is extremely difficult. Some people say that the great Tao of the Thousand-Star City has been broken, and the rules are limited, so it's impossible to open a sea. What's the specific reason? No one knows." Han Fei suddenly took a breath. This is a huge pressure. Among hundreds of millions of people, no one can open a sea. Can it be me? Han Fei suddenly laughed secretly. "All the resources have been added to me. Even the Yinyang Palace will belong to me. If I can't do it, who can?" Chapter 985. The mention of lifespan made Han Fei and the others think a lot. This was just the knowledge that the old man mentioned casually, but they didn't understand it at all. After all, no one had mentioned this to them before. Han Fei thought for a while and asked, "Senior, I have a question. Is there any conflict between the Chu sect and the Thug Academy?" Ku Shui shook his head. "I really don't know. After all, only the strong know about the matters between the strong." Han Fei frowned. "What kind of family is the Chu sect? What do they usually do?" Ku Shui smiled and said, It's simple. The Chu sect is a latecomer with a history of only a few thousand years. They have a special fondness for the thousand-star proving ground and think that there is a big secret in it. Han Fei's heart did a flip. The thousand-star proving ground? Could it be that the conflict between the Chu sect and the Thug Academy came from the thousand-star proving ground? Thinking of the sea-swallowing seashell that Old Bai gave him before he left, Han Fei decided to go to the thousand-star proving ground first. "Senior, please go on." Ku Shui thought for a while and said with a smile, "Except for the big families, the peripheral islands are around the central island. A declining family could be scattered on any floating island if they were not picky about where they lived. Except for the big families, other people's residences are not divided according to their strength. The strong may live with the weak, which is normal. And there are even more small markets, thousands of them. There's a large-scale, prosperous place on every floating island. The most important ones are the 7 major sections." Han Fei and the others were like children listening to a story around a bonfire. Han Fei had already taken out melon fruit and was listening to the story with Lu Renquan. Seeing this scene, Luo Xiaobai rolled her eyes. What kind of bad habit is this? Seeing Han Fei and the others like this, Ku Shui couldn't help but be speechless. "Do you really think I'm telling a story?" However, Ku Shui just smiled. "Yes, they are still children." Ku Shui said, "The 7 major sects are located on the 7 outermost floating islands. It can be said that every floating island where the 7 major sects are located has slowly developed into their own territory. Although there are many people living on them, they are more or less related to the various sections. After all, the people of the sect also needed resources. Where did these resources come from? Naturally, they were obtained through various transactions. What about the Thug Academy?" Ku Shui paused for a moment and his face stiffened slightly. This was also why he paid special attention to Miss after she went to the Thug Academy. Ku Shui said, "The Thug Academy has been vacant for almost 38 years. Ever since that battle, the Thug Academy had been empty. The place was overgrown with weeds. The plantation seemed to have been occupied by a few large families. However, you should be able to get it back. The other territories outside the ruins of the Thug Academy were more or less occupied. However, the old site had not changed. Although there might be people living there, it was still a barren land. The main reason was that the Thug Academy was so powerful back then that no one dared to occupy it." Han Fei and the others had a weird look on their faces. "Do you mean that all that's left of the Thug Academy is the old site? Is there nothing else?" Ku Shui nodded slightly, touched his beard, and said, "But since the young masters have gone back, they should be able to develop that place again." For some reason, Han Fei felt that something was wrong when he heard this. Because the thousand-star city was too big, it was impossible for old man Ku Shui to explain everything clearly. Just think about the Scattered Stars Island. How big was that? Not to mention the Scattered Stars Island. Even the Blue Sea town wasn't small and was ridiculously prosperous. Who knew how these floating islands could fly in the sky? The ancient powerhouses really couldn't be treated as ordinary people. Thinking about it this way, Chun Huangyan's 800-kilometer sea demon mine was nothing. He had already moved thousands of kilometers of rivers and mountains. So, Senior Ku Shui, the Thug Academy, is also on these 36 floating islands, right? Not those negligible small islands, right? Ku Shui nodded. Of course not. The Thug Academy used to be comparable to the Heavenly Sword sect and the Jade Fairy Palace. Although there are few disciples in the academy, each of them is talented. Any one of them is not a simple person, so naturally, it won't be on an ordinary island. Han Fei and the others immediately heaved a sigh of relief. That's good. Otherwise, they wouldn't know how to fight for territory. From the north to the east, Han Fei and the others passed by several floating islands. They also encountered a lot of fishing boats. In the sky, there were also birds flying. However, birds usually didn't fly too high. Most of them were relatively ordinary birds. Occasionally, a few people's senses would sweep over, but it was only because Ku Shui was here. Otherwise, no one would look at it if it was just a few of them. In fact, this time, they really crossed over mountains and rivers, rushing towards the rising sun, flying all the way. Half an hour later, they arrived at a floating island with high mountains, flowing water, and waterfalls. Flying past the crowd and the bazaar, passing by woodlands and mountains, they finally saw an abandoned school building in the easternmost side. No matter what the Thug Academy used to look like, half of it was now covered by woodland and the other half was exposed. It was overgrown with weeds, and some of the houses had collapsed. In some cases, only the pillars were left. The stone slabs on the ground and the paths were no longer what they used to be. There were weeds in the gaps. As soon as they saw this academy, Han Fei and the others nodded. This was the style of the Thug Academy. Its back was against a mountain, and in front of it was a plantation. The difference was that there were rivers connecting the inside and outside of the Thug Academy. At this moment, there were still people sitting on broken stones, fishing. Luo Xiaobai frowned and said, "Why is there only so little left? It's not even within 100 kilometers. The left and right sides have been occupied." Lu Rinquang pointed to the front and said, "Look, the plantation is no longer what it used to be. Many houses have been built on it. The remaining one isn't even half the size of the one in the Blue Sea town, right?" Zhang Xuanyu said, "It's not that the plantation has been occupied, but that this place is not the gate of the academy at all. The gate is over there." Everyone looked in the direction Zhang Xuanyu pointed, only to see that dozens of kilometers away, there were two tall stone pillars. It was probably because the pillars were not easy to move, so no one cared about them. Li Luo said, "It's not big. Not including the forest, it's only 100 kilometers, right? Including the forest, it's only about 300 kilometers." Han Fei said seriously, "Including the plantation, it's at least 500 kilometers." Ku Shui said with a smile, "To be precise, it should be 800 kilometers. Although there weren't many people in the Thug Academy before, you all know that the Thug Academy likes this natural feeling. So, including the plantation, it's more than 800 kilometers." They were silent. Lu Rinquang said leisurely, "There are still 50 kilometers left." The corner of Zhang Xuanyu's mouth twitched. "The plantation has been occupied. Almost half of the gate has been occupied." They all looked at Han Fei, including Luo Xiaobai. In battles and adventures, Luo Xiaobai had always been calm and resourceful. However, when it came to seizing territory, she didn't know how to do it at all. Should we fight them, or should we reason with them? Han Fei's face changed slightly. After a long silence, he said, "Let's go to the old site first. There can be no construction without destruction. Push down all the things that should fall. Remove all the things that should be removed and rebuild." Zhang Xuanyu said in surprise, "Are we just going to ignore those people?" Han Fei grinned. "Don't panic. Let's clean up the remaining places first. When the time comes, we'll push down wherever we can. If the peak level law enforcers don't come, we'll push them all the way." Lu Rinquang asked, "What if a peak level law enforcer comes?" Han Fei sneered. "Kill him." Zhang Xuanyu asked, "Who?" Han Fei looked at Ku Shui. "Aha, Senior Ku Shui, kill him." Ku Shui was speechless. But in fact, he didn't care. Han Fei didn't treat him as an outsider. Besides, because Miss was a student of the Thug Academy, Ku Shui would indeed help. However, he wouldn't take action immediately. He would only show up when Han Fei and the others couldn't solve the problem. Luo Xiaobai thought it was fine. This was their academy, so it was only right for them to help. Li Luo said, "What if the explorers come?" Han Fei smiled and said no. "If the explorers dare to cause trouble, it'll be too embarrassing." Han Fei suddenly looked at Li Luo. "Li Luo, do you want to join our school? Then you're below us in seniority." Li Luo immediately said, "Why? Can't I be a part-time teacher? I'm a law enforcer. I'm the only law enforcer among you." Zhang Xuanyu smiled and said, "As long as you don't become Li Kuang, everything is fine. Luo, I agree to let you be a teacher." Luo Xiaobai's mind was elsewhere. The strength of the Thug Academy was too weak now. They didn't have enough teachers. What if many heavenly talents came? Lu Rinquang didn't care. Anyway, as long as there was food to eat, it would be fine. Han Fei nodded. "Okay, Then you'll be the first external teacher of our Thug Academy. Now, Teacher Li, please clean up with us. Li Luoluo, when Han Fei and the others landed on the ground, they all noticed that something was wrong. The traces of the battle on the ground were too obvious. Some places were full of potholes, some slabs were broken, and some places were filled with sword chi and terrifying knife lights, which hadn't dissipated after 38 years. It could be seen that the battle that took place in the Thug Academy was probably more terrifying than they had imagined. Han Fei summoned the nine-tailed mantis shrimp. Han Fei instructed, Xiao Bai, all the plant cleaning work is yours. Lu Renquang will cut down trees. Zhang Xuanyu will quarry stones. Li Luoluo will control the insects to dig the ground. Nine-tailed mantis shrimp, you will demolish the house, demolish it all. Li Luoluo asked, what are you doing? Han Fei smiled and said, I'm going to kick them out. Chapter 986. Although it was a bit wasteful to ask Luo Xiaobai and the others to clean up, it was really fast. And when Luo Xiaobai and the others started to clean up, the people who were fishing in the Thug Academy got up one after another and looked at this group of uninvited guests in surprise, dumbfounded. When these people saw Han Fei walking towards them, they couldn't help but yell, Hey, boy, what are you doing? Are you going to demolish the house? Boom. As soon as this person said so, he saw a dilapidated building in the distance was smashed by the nine-tailed mantis shrimp's tail. Han Fei grinned and said, My name is Han Fei from the Thug Academy. Well, you can think of me as the acting president of the Thug Academy in the Thousand Star City. From today on, I have the final say in this place. Those people's faces changed slightly, and someone said in surprise, The Thug Academy is back. Someone narrowed his eyes and said disdainfully, Boy, who do you think you are? The Thug Academy has long ceased to exist. Just because you say you are from the Thug Academy, you are? Han Fei looked at them up and down. Well, among the five of you, only one is an intermediate hidden fisher, but you are yelling at me. I'll give you 2 minutes to leave. Otherwise, I don't mind forcing you to leave in person. Indeed, these people were not strong. Of course, Han Fei was surprised that there was a hidden fisher among the people he met in the Thousand Star City. This showed that there were many hidden fishers in the Thousand Star City. At this moment, the hidden fisher glanced at Han Fei and Luo Xiaobai and the others who were controlling the spiritual plants in the distance and couldn't help but frown. He couldn't see through Han Fei's strength, but Han Fei should be stronger than them. The man immediately sneered. Okay, bullying people in the Thousand Star City. Boy, you're crazy. Since I can't talk to you, someone else will talk to you. Let's go. In fact, there were more people fishing in the entire Thug Academy. On both sides, in some places, some people were cultivating and some were strengthening their bodies. In the forest, there were also people. Han Fei was just putting on a show. If he wanted to drive someone away, he had to look like he wanted to. He wanted to find these people one by one. Looking at the 5 people leaving angrily, Ku Shui appeared beside Han Fei. Young Master Han Fei, although this place is deserted, it's close to the mountains and rivers, and it's full of spiritual energy. Every morning, many people come here to cultivate. Han Fei looked up at the sky. So we're late? Most of them have already finished cultivating and gone back, right? Ku Shui nodded. Han Fei grinned. It's okay. You're not allowed to come in tomorrow. After a while, he came to a place overgrown with weeds on the left side of the college. A young man was cultivating there, and spiritual energy was gathering around him. The boy probably knew that Han Fei was coming, but he didn't stop cultivating. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. He stomped his foot, and a spirit-gathering array appeared. The spiritual energy that should have been poured into the young man's body was easily deprived by Han Fei. The boy opened his eyes, frowned, and looked at Han Fei. A spirit-gatherer? What are you doing? Why are you disturbing my cultivation? Han Fei smiled and said, Did I not make myself clear enough just now, or did you not take it seriously at all? I said the Thug Academy is back. Everyone, please leave. The boy looked calm. Just because you say you're from the Thug Academy, you're right? Clatter. As soon as the boy finished speaking, he felt his vision blur, and then his whole body had been lifted 100 meters into the air. Han Fei grinned. Do you think I'm joking with you? Luo Xiaobai and the others raised their heads, knowing that Han Fei couldn't negotiate with them. Han Fei shouted, "Today the Thug Academy is back. Within 100 kilometers, leave within half an hour. Otherwise, don't blame me for kicking you out." The boy in Han Fei's hand said angrily, "Let go of me. Do you know which family I am from?" Han Fei flipped his hand, twisted his body, and threw the boy dozens of kilometers away from the sky. Han Fei shouted in the sky, "I don't care which family you are from. It's useless even if the Chow family and the Chu sect come. Today, whoever I want to leave has to leave." But as soon as Han Fei finished speaking, he saw that a few kilometers away, someone also rose into the air and flew up. "How arrogant! You're just a peak-level hidden fisher. How dare you kick me out here?" Boom! A golden fist mark blasted out, and the person who spoke changed his face drastically and used a big turtle to protect himself. At the same time, a turtle shield flew out of the armor box. BM Kacha! The turtle shield shattered, and the man vomited blood and was sent flying by Han Fei's punch. Han Fei grinned and said, "Talk to me when you're qualified to take a punch from me. Now, if you don't get out of here within 10 minutes, don't blame me for beating you." Bam! A person in the forest was blasted flying, and Zhang Xuanyu cursed, "I told you to get out of here, so get out of here." Cut the crap. After a while, from 100 kilometers away, dozens of people left angrily one after another. Before leaving, they all left a lot of harsh words. "Okay, I didn't expect that now everyone dares to come to the Pure Sun Island and behave atrociously. Don't leave if you dare. Okay, I like to see how this show ends. Wait here for half an hour if you dare. You've never been kicked out of here in your life. You're good." Although they were all leaving behind words when they left, not a single one of them dared to scold anyone. The power of Han Fei's punch just now was too horrifying. A peak-level hidden fisher was sent flying by Han Fei without even taking a punch. Seeing Han Fei's decisiveness, if they really fought with Han Fei now, they would probably be beaten for nothing. Of course, they wouldn't do such a thing. However, they all held their anger in their hearts and prepared to come back later to see how Han Fei would deal with this. Li Luoluo said, "Wow, Han Fei, you seem to have offended a lot of people all of a sudden." Han Fei said casually, "At present, in the entire Scattered Stars Island, how many forces have we not offended yet? Since we've offended a few big families, we don't mind offending some ordinary people. We can solve the problem once and for all." Rumble, rumble. The dilapidated buildings were knocked down by the nine-tailed mantis shrimp. On the ground, weeds are being pulled up. On the ground, countless crisscrossed mounds appeared. An hour later, weeds piled up, gravel piled up, and an area of about 30 kilometers was cleared empty. Zhang Xuanyu and Luren Kuang, one carried rows of big trees stacked together, and the other carried boulders one after another, forming several rows. Han Fei was not idle either. Walking on the land that had been cleared, the gravity pressed down on him, and wherever he passed, the land was flattened. The old man, Ku Shui, watched with great interest. He had to admit that the students of the Thug Academy were really good at hands-on work. Besides, was it the power of the law that Han Fei was using? He felt the fluctuation of the law. Could a hidden fisher master the law of gravity? Suddenly, Han Fei sensed that a large group of people were rushing here from hundreds of kilometers away. There were thousands of them. Yes, thousands. Han Fei was a little surprised. These people were a bit fast. Han Fei shouted, "Stop what you're doing and get ready to welcome the guests. Which son of a bitch beat my son? Come out. How dare a few hidden fishers behave atrociously on the Pure Sun Island? Did they get hit in the head by an ironhead fish? If they don't pay the price today, those guys won't be able to walk out of the Pure Sun Island. The Thug Academy hasn't had a successor for nearly 40 years. I like to see who is pretending to be from the Thug Academy." After a while, the 5 of them lined up in a row and saw thousands of people charging at them. They were led by as many as 8 law enforcers and a large number of peak-level hidden fishers. As for the others, there were old people, children, women, and strong middle-aged men. Anyway, they all looked unfriendly. For them, The place where the Thug Academy was located had long become their daily cultivation place. Even though this place had been deserted, the Thug Academy was once very prosperous, so the location chosen was not bad. The density of spiritual energy here was very good on the Pure Sun Island. In the past, when the Thug Academy was still here, it was protected by a large array and could be said to be a holy land for cultivation, with rich spiritual energy. In the entire Thousand-Star City, it was ranked among the best. Now that the Thug Academy had been destroyed and the large array had been obliterated, it was much better than other places. Everyone was used to it and felt that this place was ownerless and should belong to everyone. However, someone claimed to be from the Thug Academy and wanted to take this place back. Who would listen to him? When he saw Han Fei and the others, the person who had been thrown out by Han Fei just now immediately pointed at Han Fei and shouted, "Dad, is that him?" And the person who had been blown away just now was still a little pale at this moment. He said to a middle-aged man beside him, "Uncle, it's this person. He's arrogant and domineering. Don't worry, son. He must give us an explanation today." With that, the middle-aged man pointed straight at Han Fei. Unless you kneel down and apologize today, you won't be able to walk out of the Pure Sun Island today." With that, the middle-aged man pointed straight at Han Fei. Another person sneered. "It's not as simple as just apologizing. You must pay enough compensation for openly hurting people." An old man shouted, "Boy, who allowed you to touch this place?" A woman accused, "Who was I? A bunch of brats claiming to be from the Thug Academy? I'm afraid he's lost his mind from thinking about the territory." A young man stared at Li Luoluo and said disdainfully, "You don't even look like a woman. You don't look like a good person." Li Luoluo shouted, "I dare you to say that again. I'll beat you into a big yellow fish." Chapter 987. Han Fei glanced at Li Luoluo. Quarreling won't solve the problem. No matter how loud you are, you can't win over 1,000 people. You have to fight them. Li Luoluo rolled her eyes and thought to herself, "How can I fight them?" Unless old man Ku Shui took action, there were dozens of peak-level hidden fishers among the 8 law enforcers here. Adding up the others, this group of people was definitely not weak. Han Fei was also a little surprised. The Thousand-Star City was much stronger than he had imagined. If the Scattered Stars Island and the 10,000 Demon Valley were the front lines, then the Thousand-Star City might be equivalent to the so-called Royal City in the Sea Demon's mouth, with many strong masters. If all the strong masters here were really dragged to the Scattered Stars Island to fight, if the other party only had the 10,000 Demon Valley, they would have been wiped out long ago. However, Han Fei didn't panic at all. He took a step forward and pointed his knife at them. "Since you're all here, that's great. From today on, no one is allowed to enter within 800 kilometers of the Thug Academy. The occupied territory of the Thug Academy must be returned within 3 days. If you don't return it, I'll force you to leave." Ha ha ha. Is this person crazy? Does he know what he's talking about? Is there something wrong with his brain? Return? Return what? Who do you think you are? Amidst the ridicule, Han Fei walked forward with his knife. "Li Luoluo, you take one law enforcer." Li Luoluo looked at Han Fei speechlessly. "You'll take all the rest?" Han Fei grinned. "Let me try." Luo Xiaobai said, "I'll take one." Zhang Xuanyu licked the corner of his mouth and said, "Me too." Lu Renquang was speechless. Then Han Fei said, "The people below are all yours." Lu Renquang rolled his eyes. "You guys each deal with one, but I have to deal with 1,000? Are you kidding me?" Suddenly, Luo Xiaobai said, "Forget it. I'll switch with Lu Renquang. If he really fights, I'm afraid there will be a river of blood." Lu Renquang was an armorist, and now that he had learned the true martial devil knife from old Han, it was impossible for him not to hurt people. As for Luo Xiaobai, she was a manipulator. Although she could also kill people, she was relatively gentle in group battles. The 5 of them walked forward in a straight line. Glib tongue? Who knew how long it would take? Han Fei said as he walked, "You asked us how we can prove that we're from the Thug Academy? Today, I, along with 5 people from the Thug Academy, challenge all of you." The 1,000 people on the other side were dumbfounded. Countless people were speechless. They had seen crazy people before, but they had never seen someone this crazy. You want to challenge over 1,000 of us with just 5 people? On the opposite side, the middle-aged leader shouted, "Brat, do you really think killing is forbidden in the Thousand-Star City? You're a hidden fisher. If you die here, what do you think anyone will say?" Han Fei and the others walked faster and faster, and their shadows flickered. First, the bloodthirsty shark appeared behind Zhang Xuanyu. Then, he activated the Trinity body. 3 identical Zhang Xuanyus appeared in front of everyone, each with a divine weapon in their hands. Then, an orange-red light burst out of Lu Rinquang's body as he activated the violent war body. Behind him, a dark blue, formless shadow entered his body. This was the deep blue roar. Even Han Fei and the others rarely saw Lu Rinquang use deep blue roar. That was a legendary contractual spiritual beast. Li Luo waved her hand, and a large number of colorful insects appeared, her momentum rising sharply. Hoop! Han Fei's phantom glass wings spread out, and everyone was stunned by his translucent wings. And Luo Xiaobai was even more amazing. With every step she took, the vegetation around her grew. The vines were weaving, man-eating flowers appeared, and all kinds of thorns began to grow densely. Kushui watched from a distance and sighed. No wonder his family was so optimistic about this batch of students from the Thug Academy. They were all monsters. Needless to say, Han Fei had obtained the Wind God Pearl and was a refiner with amazing strength. Even the little girl who joined halfway was extraordinary. And the thousands of people on the opposite side were also a little dumbfounded at this moment. The strength of the 5 teenagers on the opposite side was rapidly increasing. Besides, none of them looked simple, especially the one with the glass wings in the middle. Why weren't they white? A law enforcer's face turned ugly. He took a deep breath and said word by word, "Wind, God, Pearl." The faces of the law enforcers all became solemn. The person who could obtain the Wind God Pearl was definitely not a nameless person. If they were the children of the big families in the Thousand-Star City, they would have long spread. This meant that these teenagers might have just come from the Scattered Stars Island. The old man in the lead said, "Young people, your talents are indeed outstanding. We can admit that you are from the Thug Academy. However, we have already settled in the outside world. Why don't you keep this undeveloped place and rebuild the school?" The old man knew how the Thug Academy had once fallen. Under normal circumstances, the Thug Academy would never be able to return to this place in this life. But now, Han Fei and the others had come, and there were no big families in the Thousand-Star City stopping them, which explained some things. This meant that to a certain extent, some big families had acquiesced. If it was just Han Fei and the others, they didn't have the ability or the strength to make the big families acquiesce in their return. Therefore, behind Han Fei and the others, there must be a strong master who could speak in the Thousand-Star City. Such a person was definitely not someone ordinary people could compare to. At least, he was not someone that they, as independent cultivators, could afford to offend. Han Fei said indifferently, "If I say I'll return it, then I'll return it all. There's no room for bargaining." The old man immediately said angrily, "Boy, don't push your luck. Then let's fight." At this moment, Han Fei was extremely domineering. There were some things that could be solved with fists, so there was no need to reason with them. After all, when 5 mouths were quarreling, it was extremely difficult to win against 1,000 mouths in an argument. This was not a quarrel with a group of Confucians. They were quarreling with the Confucians and arguing with them. But now, this was a quarrel, more like a quarrel. How could they quarrel? Swish! Han Fei disappeared, and when he reappeared, he was already hundreds of meters away in the sky. At this moment, he shouted, "Law enforcers, come up. Otherwise, don't blame me for not reminding you." Swish! 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 Everyone flew into the sky. In an instant, there was only Luo Xiaobai left on the field. Her pupils were pure white, and at this moment, she looked coldly at the thousands of people in front of her. The young man who had been thrown away and blasted back by Han Fei was still in shock. They were all hidden fishers, but why were these people so arrogant and domineering? In the air, Lu Quang, Zhang Xuanyu, and Li Luoluo each restrained one person and left. The remaining 5 people faced Han Fei. Someone said, "Boy, no matter how talented you are just a hidden fisher. How can you be a match for us 5 law enforcers? If there were advanced law enforcers among you, I certainly wouldn't challenge you. Unfortunately, you don't." As he spoke, he activated the devil change and the agility of wind. Han Fei was like a flickering phantom in the air. With a dragon roar, the golden fist mark blasted directly at the 5 people. Boom, boom, boom. The sky was exploding and the void was trembling. In just 10 minutes, all 5 law enforcers were blasted back by Han Fei. Some were even smashed into the mountain, their hands bleeding. At that moment, someone on the ground was horrified. How is it possible? He is only a hidden fisher. Even the 5 law enforcers were shocked. Not good. This boy is a heavenly talent on the path of body refinement. We must use the power of laws. For these law enforcers, of course, they didn't want to use law enforcers at first. But as soon as Han Fei attacked, his strength and speed suppressed them in all aspects. Didn't he need to use law enforcers? They could only be beaten up. Fire tide. The sky was crimson, and fire covered the sky, and Han Fei was instantly shrouded in flames. However, in the perception of the law enforcers, Han Fei was not affected at all, and the golden fist mark still burst out. Someone shouted, "Demonic sound of fear." A strange sound rang in the sky, and Han Fei stuffed a mouthful of mint leaves into his mouth, used the draw technique, and slashed at the man without even looking at him. Violent electric current. Zilala. Han Fei resisted the terrifying electric current and even twisted his head twice, making a cracking sound. He pointed with one hand, and the infinity water turned into thousands of knives, sweeping over crazily. Poison cloud. Triple rampage. Unfortunately, although the 5 law enforcers each had their own advantages, what stunned them was that Han Fei didn't even retreat. They didn't know that Han Fei had been drinking poison for 2 years. At this moment, the Heaven Spirit detoxifying insect was a level 47 detoxifying insect. It had tasted all kinds of poisons. Han Fei had tasted 80% of the poisons that could be bought on the market. On the other hand, the middle-aged law enforcer who was in the 3rd level of Berserk turned out to be even stronger than Han Fei. Bam! Han Fei punched 3 times in a row and barely broke the man's fist. However, it didn't matter. Han Fei's figure flickered in the air, and his speed was extremely fast. In an instant, he punched the man more than 20 times. In the sky, the battle was fierce. Lu Quang was like a demon, controlling more than 1,000 semi-divine weapons and dozens of divine weapons to wreak havoc. In his hand, he was holding a pitch-black broadsword, and behind him stood a black phantom more than 50 meters in size. True martial sharpening broadsword could tear the sky and crack the earth, and the opponent happened to master gravity. But when it fell on the deep blue roar, it was all sucked away. So, after fighting for more than 10 minutes, Lu Quang hacked the man until he was covered in blood. Zhang Xuanyu's physique wasn't that strong, but his long-distance momentary time was so accurate that even a law enforcer couldn't block it. Li Luoluo controlled countless flying insects. She was a law enforcer, so she didn't lose at all. On the ground, flowers bloomed everywhere, and the huge blue cannibal flower bloomed with thousands of flowers. The Grand Spirit Summoning Technique summoned more than 50 kinds of spiritual plants, all kinds of poisons, smoke, and spirit-devouring spiritual plants into the crowd. One person controlled the field, and the surroundings became a dangerous place. Ku Shui sighed in the distance. What monster? Chapter 988. It wasn't impossible for a hidden fisher to defeat a law enforcer. As a matter of fact, there were always geniuses in the 7 great academies and the renowned clans who were capable of doing so. After all, the law enforcers only control the law, not a great Tao. If this law happened to be unable to suppress the other party, or the other party happened to be able to suppress this law, then the gap between a law enforcer and a hidden fisher would only be the upper limit of spiritual energy, physical strength, and soul power. However, prodigies and ordinary people could be considered two different creatures. One could not use the strength of an ordinary person to measure a prodigy. If that was the case, the consequences would be very tragic. However, no one would have thought that Han Fei's strength had been so exaggerated that he could fight against 5 people alone. For types of laws were practically useless against him. The only law that was effective against him was actually the most ordinary law of strength. Who wouldn't panic if they were in his shoes? At this moment, under the continuous bombardment, because the 5 law enforcers couldn't suppress Han Fei with their nomological laws, and their overall strength was crushed by Han Fei, they could be said to have exploded in the sky. Golden fist prints bombarded the sky. None of the 5 law enforcers could withstand the overbearing power of the invincible fist print. Apart from the strength-type enforcer, the other 4's skin was cracking and their bones were breaking. Blood was gushing out of their mouths. They could only barely keep themselves in the air and prevent themselves from falling and injuring the people on the ground. Below, those young men and women who were originally just there to make up the numbers were all stunned when they saw this scene. On the ground, Luo Xiaobai was controlling more than 50 kinds of weird spiritual plants within a kilometer and had already killed more than 20 of them. Because no one knew what these spirit plants were, they had no way of dealing with them. What a joke. How could these people recognize the spiritual herbs from the underground city? Every hit was accurate, and they all fell to the ground. Up above, Lurenquang's opponent couldn't hurt him at all. Even his strongest attack couldn't break the dark blue shadow shell. Besides, the demonic knife in Lurenquang's hand was cold and full of killing intent. Even if he was a law enforcement officer, he wouldn't be able to escape unscathed. If it weren't for the fact that Lurenquang wasn't fast enough, he would have been defeated. Zhang Xuanyu's opponent had been defeated. Although Zhang Xuanyu didn't seem to have much combat power, that was because he was in a group battle or in a complicated battle situation. In a one-on-one battle, this guy's momentary time was extremely terrifying. Even Han Fei couldn't avoid his momentary time. Moreover, he had created the 3rd heaven of the Furious Sea. When the void was broken, the strength of the 3-layered waves was far stronger than the 9-layered waves of Furious Sea. Moreover, Zhang Xuanyu was holding a superior-grade divine weapon. His opponent, the law enforcer, was lying on the ground with 5 or 6 holes in his body. As for Li Luoluo, her figure was flickering and colorful flying insects were flying all over the sky, creating all kinds of illusions. As a heavenly talent of the Empyrean waterfall, how could he have a problem dealing with an ordinary law enforcer? At this moment, his opponent had already fallen into an illusion and was tearing his skin apart. As for Han Fei, needless to say, his figure flickered wildly in the sky, completely treating the 5 law enforcers as sandbags. It could be said that his punches landed on flesh and blood sprayed everywhere. Below, someone was suspicious. Is he from the Yi family? Someone shook his head. No, maybe he's really from the Thug Academy. A woman was horrified. How can he be so strong? Is the Thug Academy so strong? An old man's expression changed. The Thug Academy was indeed astoundingly strong. However, to challenge 5 people at a higher level is unheard of. Stop. Suddenly, a figure flashed across the sky and reached out to grab Han Fei. In the next moment, old man Ku Shui blocked him in midair. The young masters said that they will return the land of the Thug Academy. If you want to stop, agree to this first. The newcomer's face turned ugly. A peak-level law enforcer? Ku Shui smiled and said, I'm Ku Shui. You should be from the Su family, right? Nice to meet you, Mr. Su. The man's expression changed drastically. A divine manipulator family, the Luo family of Moon-Gazing Island. Is it Master Ku Shui? The man immediately shouted, Everyone back off. Return all the land of the Thug Academy. Han Fei's wings swept out in an arc, and he stood next to Ku Shui, smiling faintly. That's how it should be. Don't worry, the Thug Academy has its own rules. This time, when we return to the mountain, we will re-establish an academy. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. Since there are rules here, that's fine. Han Fei smiled faintly. You can stop now. Zhang Xuanyu had already finished fighting and was watching the show with a rod in his arms. To be honest, Li Luolua's fancy fighting style was quite beautiful. Roar! The deep blue roar disappeared, and Luren Kuang landed on the ground and stood next to Luo Xiaobai. Luo Xiaobai stretched out her hand, and the spiritual plants in all directions quickly disappeared. After a while, only the ruins of the battlefield were left. Li Luo snorted. If I could kill people, I would have killed them long ago. In the sky, Ku Shui smiled and said, "You guys talk." Han Fei was a law enforcer, and the person opposite him should be stronger. If he was not a peak-level law enforcer, he was at least an advanced law enforcer. He couldn't win against such an opponent yet. After all, the fundamental difference in strength was there. An advanced law enforcer, even if he didn't use any means, would have more than 10 waves of strength. It was similar to when he encountered the green wandering flood dragon. The green wandering flood dragon's physical strength was 20 waves. With just a little bit of strength, a law enforcer of the same realm wouldn't be a match for it all. Therefore, if the person in front of him really used a secret technique, his strength would be at least twice as strong as his, giving him an absolute advantage. Besides, the other party might be a peak-level law enforcer. Han Fei speculated that the pure strength of a peak-level law enforcer would be more than twice as strong after he used the devil change. Of course, Han Fei wasn't afraid at all. He said bluntly, "The Thug Academy returns today. We're not here, so outsiders can use this territory. We're back. We'll take back all the territory. No one else is allowed to set foot here in the future." The middle-aged man took a deep look at Han Fei. He was shocked by the battle just now. It was impossible for ordinary heavenly talents to fight 5 at once. In the entire Thousand-Star City, there were no more than 10 people who could do this in hundreds of years, and Han Fei was one of them. Therefore, Han Fei was qualified to ask for territory. The middle-aged man glanced at Han Fei and the others and said, "Is the Thug Academy returning?" Han Fei nodded. "Yes." The middle-aged man frowned. "Just the 5 of you? 1 law enforcer and 4 peak-level hidden fishers?" Han Fei smiled and said, "So what if we're peak-level hidden fishers? Do you think we dare to return to the Thousand-Star City without some trump cards?" The middle-aged man was silent for a long time before suddenly saying leisurely, "There are no explorers, right?" Han Fei tilted his head and waited for the middle-aged man to continue. The middle-aged man sighed and said, "Although the Pure Sun Island has declined, there are no explorers. Are you sure the big families won't come to make trouble?" Han Fei said without hesitation, "The 7 major sects and the big families already know that we've returned. Even if they come to make trouble, it won't be explorers." The middle-aged man glanced at Han Fei in surprise and said after a moment of silence, "What about the declining families or small families?" Han Fei frowned. "What do you mean? How would I know how many families there are in the Thousand-Star City? However, there should be a lot of families in the Thousand-Star City, right? Those people shouldn't know the situation of the Thug Academy. Or will the big families send those people to make trouble?" Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. They all came to the Thousand-Star City for a purpose. They had to go to the 3 places on the God's Monument to find a way to enter the Divine Palace, and they had to go to the Thousand-Star Proving Ground to fight for territory. Once they left and the small families came to destroy the Thug Academy, what should they do? However, although he thought of this, Han Fei remained calm on the surface. He looked at Ku Shui and said, "Senior, if those small families take the initiative to attack, can we fight them?" Ku Shui was slightly stunned. This style of doing things is really tough. Ku Shui smiled and said, "As long as it doesn't affect the lives of ordinary people, it's possible. However, there are also law enforcers in the Thousand-Star City. There's a high chance that they will stand on the side of those small families." Han Fei looked at the middle-aged man and said, "How to deal with it is the Thug Academy's own business, right? Why? Does the Su family have any ideas?" The middle-aged man smiled. "Since the Thug Academy wants to establish itself in the Thousand-Star City again, you may not lack law enforcers, but you still lack explorers. However, the Su family has explorers." Han Fei narrowed his eyes slightly. "To what extent? What are the conditions?" Han Fei and the others weren't here to offend anyone. He didn't know what the Su family's goal was, but it didn't stop him from listening. The middle-aged man immediately grinned. Since the Thug Academy is going to be rebuilt, we naturally have to recruit students. The Su family's Lin is also extraordinary. 5 names. Can you make the decision? Since Old Bai had given him the authority, Han Fei was now the acting president, so he naturally could make the decision. However, Han Fei shook his head. There are too many. 1, and we have to choose ourselves. This couldn't be allowed to happen. Otherwise, what would the Thug Academy look like if all the nobodies were allowed in? The tradition of the Thug Academy was to only accept geniuses. The middle-aged man didn't seem to expect Han Fei to agree to accept 5 people. He immediately said, I won't beat around the bush. 3 people. My family has 2 explorers. If necessary, they will take action. Han Fei smiled and said, 2 explorers? Then let's accept 2. Otherwise, let's not talk about this matter. Since we can deal with the big families, do you really think those small families can overturn the sky? Interject. Some people think that I said that the Thug Academy is 800 kilometers away and their mathematics is very poor. Come, let me do some calculations for him. Chapter 989. The middle-aged man was silent for a moment. He realized that there was indeed something wrong with their return this time. Logically speaking, as long as one of the big shots of the Thug Academy returned, they would be able to control the situation. But in the end, he sent 5 little ones back. This meant that there was a reason why those experts could not return. Although the experts of the Thug Academy couldn't return, the fact that they could return meant that they had recovered to a certain extent and had the strength to challenge the major families of the Thousand-Star City. Under such circumstances, the old site of the Thug Academy had to be returned. After all, the land belonged to them. He also believed that these big shots would be able to settle many of the small clans here with just a little bit of effort. However, at this time, why not take the opportunity to stuff a few people in? The Su family could be considered an ancient family. Although it was a small family, it had been glorious in history. They were well aware of the Thug Academy's recruitment criteria. They only wanted heavenly talents. Look at them. They haven't changed at all. Which one of them was not a human dragon or phoenix? Even the Luo family had arranged for their juniors to enter the Thug Academy. Why didn't the Su family take the opportunity to stand on their side? At the very least, as long as the clan's disciples didn't die, they might be able to protect the Su clan for 100 years. The middle-aged man's expression flickered slightly, as if he had received some kind of message. He immediately nodded and said, Sure, 2 people it is. We have to choose for ourselves. The middle-aged man laughed. Of course. Please come to the Su family for a banquet on the day of the Academy's reconstruction. After all, since they had chosen to return, they had to get to know some people. It might be inconvenient to go far away, but I have to familiarize myself with Pure Sun Island first. Han Fei thought for a moment and nodded. Okay, in that case, how should I address you? Senior? The middle-aged man sighed in his heart. Only now is this kid willing to call me senior. This is the pride of a genius. The middle-aged man smiled and said, Su Yang, with your strength as a peak law enforcer, you don't deserve to be the current head of the Su family. Han Fei laughed in his heart. A peak-level law enforcer was not bad. If this happened in the 36 towns, it would be terrifying enough. However, compared to those rich and powerful families, they were indeed a little lacking. From the looks of it, the 2 explorers of the Su family were probably from the older generation. As for how strong it was, Han Fei didn't know, but it was definitely not a venerable. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for them to become a small clan. Han Fei did not say anything. First of all, they had to accept disciples, and the disciples of aristocratic families were indeed superior, even if they were from declining families. Secondly, he might stay on the Pure Sun Island for a long time in the future. If he offended everyone now, it wouldn't be appropriate either. Today's battle announced the return of the Thug Academy. As for the rest of the matter, well, it would have to wait until the school was built first. After landing, Su Yang shouted at everyone, You occupied this place because the Thug Academy has abundant spiritual energy. Now that Master has returned, you have all seen his strength. This piece of land should be returned to its rightful owner. For the next 2 days, move out of this place and find a place to settle down. It could be seen that the deterrent power of the Sioux family in this area was very high. Although many people were unwilling, no one refuted. The point was that the 4 of them were too fierce just now. The 4 of them took down 8 law enforcers, especially Han Fei. He won against 5 people, which made them feel a sense of powerlessness. When those teenagers looked at Han Fei and the others again, there was awe and fear in their eyes. The young men who had been thrown away and chased away by Han Fei were also silent. They couldn't afford to provoke such a genius. There was no saying that a powerful dragon couldn't suppress a local snake. They were very strong. 5 of them dared to challenge 1,000 people. Who would dare to do so? The old law enforcer who participated in the battle side. Everyone disperse. Go back and move. Wait a minute. Suddenly, Luo Xiaobai spoke. She pointed at the middle-aged man who had been clamoring for Han Fei and the others to kneel and beg for mercy. You apologize. Han Fei and the others smiled. Although Luo Xiaobai was usually very rational, she was a woman. She couldn't bear to see herself being insulted, so naturally, she couldn't bear to see the people she cared about being insulted. Luo Xiaobai cared a lot about Han Fei, Zhang Xuanyu, and the others. After so many years, it wasn't an exaggeration to describe them as childhood sweethearts. The middle-aged man's face turned red in an instant. Now, he couldn't flare up even if he wanted to. He couldn't defeat any one of them. But as an adult, how could he apologize to a few children? Su Yang shouted, apologize, apologize seriously. The middle-aged man seemed to be slow. After hesitating for a moment, he finally took a deep breath, walked forward in a few steps, bowed, and said, Lu Bing is ignorant and offended you. Please forgive me. After a long time, seeing that there was no sound, Lu Bing didn't dare to raise his head and bowed even deeper. After a while, his son supported him and said, Dad, they are gone. Lu Bing looked up in surprise and found that Han Fei and the others had already walked hundreds of meters away, and there was no movement at all. He didn't even hear them. Lu Bing's face was red. He had embarrassed himself in front of his son today. However, it was all this little bastard's fault. Wasn't he the one who provoked them first? The law enforcers bowed to Su Yang, and then someone asked, Master Su, can the Thug Academy really come back? Su Yang looked at the departing figures of Han Fei and the others and sneered. They're already back. What do you mean by really coming back? The law enforcers all took a deep breath. Then the children of our pure Sun Island, Su Yang shrugged. I can't control this matter. You have to see how they arrange it. However, let me remind you, I believe you all know what the Thug Academy used to be like. If you don't have a genius in your family, don't send yourself to them. In terms of selecting students, the 7 major sects combined aren't as strict as the Thug Academy. After everyone dispersed, Su Yang sighed softly. He wondered if he could make the right bet. The Su family was just a small family. It wasn't impossible for them to rise. However, there were only a few who could be considered geniuses in the family. He really didn't know if they would take a liking to them. In addition, he needed to remember something else. Although the Thug Academy was good, their style of doing things had always been overbearing and even a little lawless. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been jointly killed back then. He only hoped that this time, the Thug Academy could be more stable. As long as they didn't cause a major disaster, it would be fine. Otherwise, the Su family would probably be implicated. Su Yang didn't know what his decision meant. If he had known the purpose of Han Fei and the others' return, if he had known that this involved a game between venerables, he probably wouldn't have dared to interfere in this matter. Unfortunately, there were no ifs. He only saw how powerful Han Fei and the others were, and that the people of the Thug Academy had returned. They didn't know anything else. This was the limitation of a small family. In the school, Zhang Xuanyu said, there are a lot of powerhouses here. Just the pure Sun Island alone has 7 or 8 law enforcers, and there are 2 explorers behind them. This doesn't include those who didn't come. Luren Kwang nodded. We have to become a law enforcer as soon as possible. Han Fei said, there's no rush. We're not familiar with the 1,000-star city yet. When the school is rebuilt, we'll go to those places to take a look. Luo Xiaobai looked at Ku Shui and said, Grandpa Ku, ask your family to send a heritage testing stone over. Ku Shui smiled and extended his hand. Miss, it's ready. Obviously, the Luo family had long known that the Thug Academy would be rebuilt. Therefore, when they asked Ku Shui to pick them up, they had already prepared everything they needed. Luo Xiaobai threw the heritage testing stone to Han Fei. 2. Han Fei said, let's see when we get there. If they're good ones, take 2. If they're mediocre, just take them. Luo Xiaobai said in surprise. Just take them. Han Fei smiled and said, it's not a big problem. No matter how declining a family is, it's still a family. It's impossible for them to not have 1 or 2 decent children. Otherwise, this family would have been wiped out long ago. It's impossible for them to survive until now. Even if they arranged it themselves, they would have found 2 good seedlings. Otherwise, why would Su Yang mention this to me? Han Fei clapped his hands and said, okay, the people have been cleaned up. You guys continue to clean up the unclean places. I'm going to build a house. He was almost a law enforcer. Building a house was as simple as cleaning up the site. The only thing Han Fei had to consider was how big the house should be. What type of house should he build? What style should he use? Since he was going to build it, he naturally wanted to slack off. Why don't he build a school library? As for the few of them, couldn't they just build a tree house and sleep on a tree? As for a classroom, there was no need. How should he build a house? There was no need to consider too much. The main thing was that it had to be grand and imposing. Only in this way could it match the temperament of the Thug Academy. However, it wouldn't do if the house was too big. When the Thug Academy returned to the Thousand-Star City, they would definitely be at the forefront of the struggle. What if they came to cause trouble? What would they do? Therefore, he had to create some killing arrays. Finally, the Thug Academy wanted to recruit students. It would be great if this house could automatically assess students. It doesn't have to be a house. Something else seems to be fine. It had to be grand, have a killing array, and be used as a checkpoint. Han Fei only had 2 inspirations in his mind. Or rather, they weren't buildings. That was the maze, the dimensional killing formation. Chapter 990. Han Fei had seen a square plant labyrinth. That was a wall made of plants, which could be moved and used as an ambush array, making people unable to find the exit. If he used the plant wall as the lines of the array, coupled with a spirit-gathering array to replenish spiritual energy, he could seal the top. This would become the deep-sea stone forest where the rock-holding turtle was imprisoned in the level 2 fishery, but it was very difficult to make. As for the dimensional killing array, it was a bit difficult, but it didn't seem difficult to make a Rubik's Cube. He had to make a big Rubik's Cube and use it as a library. In this way, he could set up a serial killing array in each square. Turning the Rubik's Cube from time to time could ensure that nothing went wrong. However, this Rubik's Cube didn't seem simple. It was not difficult to build, but difficult to set up arrays. With his current level of arrays, the killing array he made might not be powerful enough. At most, it could block the attacks of law enforcers. Forget it. I can only make it first, and then slowly upgrade and strengthen it later. Han Fei muttered to himself. As for the other things, such as the canteen and dormitory, he could just put them in the back mountain and live in the trees like before. As for the training ground for students, he could arrange it in the maze. Thinking of this, Han Fei suddenly felt that it was perfect. Now, not only could he solve the problem of school construction, but he could also train students and didn't need to build so many houses. Flattening the ground all the way, Han Fei had already flown into the sky, flying head down, and was studying how to set up arrays. Luren Kuang shouted, "What are you doing?" Han Fei said impatiently, "Just do your thing. I'm doing construction." Li Luo followed Luo Xiaobai and was turning the ground, muttering, "I think he's just lazy." Luo Xiaobai shook her head. No, although Han Fei doesn't mean what he says, he's still very reliable. Li Luo grinned and waved at Han Fei. "I want to build a small villa at the Empyrean waterfall." Han Fei waved his hand and said, "What are you thinking? The Thug Academy doesn't provide dormitories. Later, go to the forest and build it yourself." Han Fei held the fish skin map in his hand and pondered it over and over again. No, it has to be mobile. No, it's too troublesome to move. I can use teleportation arrays instead. Well, in addition to the killing array, I also have to make a defensive array to protect the plant wall. Which killing array should I throw? Forget it, throw them all in. Half a day passed in the blink of an eye. In the evening, a group of people sat at the back of the mountain, eating hot pot. Han Fei was still studying the fish skin map in his hand. Under normal circumstances, cooking was Lu Renquang's job. After many years of experience, although there was still a gap between him and Han Fei, this fatty had mastered all the basic dishes, and the taste was not bad. Lu Renquang said, "Fei Fei, when it's time to eat, you have to eat properly. Only then will there be flavor." Zhang Xuanyu leaned over and asked, "What are these fancy drawings of yours?" Han Fei pushed his head away and said, "I want to build a school different from the 7 major sections. Now I finally understand why there are so many ruins and secret realms in this world. They were all created by humans. Everyone, even Luo Xiaobai, was dumbfounded. How did building a house have anything to do with relics and treasure troves?" The third day, everything had been settled. The wood and stones collected by Zhang Xuanyu and Lu Renquang had piled up into a hill. At this moment, everyone was squatting on a piece of wood, watching Han Fei stand and wander in front of the pile of wood and stones. They all wanted to see what Han Fei was going to do. Suddenly, Han Fei took out a large piece of wood from Forge the Universe. Luo Xiaobai's eyes immediately narrowed. Big red trunk. Zhang Xuanyu's eyes widened. What? Didn't it disappear? Lu Renquang muttered, "I don't think it disappeared, but was uprooted by Han Fei. According to his character, it is very likely that he would do such a thing." Li Luo was dumbfounded. So, this is the tree in the center of the seaborne grassland in the level 3 fishery? The old man, Ku Shui, also watched this scene with interest. Although the big red trunk was not valuable to Han Fei and the others now, it was still valuable. But no matter how worthless it was, he had to see how big this material was, right? Clatter. A massive amount of spiritual spring water gushed out, instantly ignited, and soared high with the spiritual fire. Han Fei's sudden move startled everyone, and they were all dumbfounded. Even old man Ku Shui was dumbfounded. After a while, he said, "Young Master Han Fei, are you refining?" Everyone was stunned. The corners of Luo Xiaobai's mouth twitched. "So, big? Refining what?" Zhang Xuanyu gulped and swallowed. "Are you crazy? How much spiritual spring water is this?" Lu Renquang forgot to stuff the dried fish into his mouth and said with a dumbfounded look, "Aren't we building a house? By refining?" Under everyone's dumbfounded gaze, a huge red ball slowly appeared. It had a diameter of 50 meters. This was the diameter of the big red trunk itself. Now Han Fei had taken out a ball. However, after this ball came out, the ball gradually began to deform. Above, below, left, right, front, back, and behind the ball, there were more sticks sticking out. Then, it deformed again, turning into a complex circular screw shape. In fact, Han Fei didn't really refine it, mainly because there was no need. This was just the inner part of a normal Rubik's Cube. As long as the outer frame was constructed, it would become a 4th-order Rubik's Cube. At first, Han Fei felt that the 3rd-order Rubik's Cube was too simple and the 5th order was too troublesome, so he made a 4th-order one. Unfortunately, the inner part itself was only 50 meters in diameter. Therefore, the entire Rubik's Cube was only about 80 meters long on each side. While everyone was dumbfounded, Han Fei began to refine the stone. This one was much faster. After adding a little of the big red trunk's leftover material, the quality was not bad, just enough to reach the level of an ordinary weapon. Of course, if Han Fei wanted to, it could be better. However, that would cost a lot of spiritual energy. Besides, a real spiritual weapon required a complete refining process, which was too expensive. More than 4 hours later, 56 strange parts with different shapes and sizes appeared. All the parts had 1 or 2 or even 3 square faces. Because the 4th-order Rubik's Cube had a total of 8 corner blocks, 24 side blocks, and 24 center blocks. That was why everyone was baffled by what they saw. Han Fei shouted, "Xiao Bai Li Luo Luo, come and help." Luo Xiao Bai and Li Luo Luo walked over in a daze. Han Fei divided the 56 pieces into several piles, wrote down the colors, and said, "Come on, color these faces. Don't make mistakes." On the ground, there are 6 colors: orange, red, yellow, white, blue, and green. Li Luo Luo frowned and grinned. "Is this the house you were talking about?" Han Fei said, "You underestimate me, don't you? You have a lot of colors. You color them." Lu Renquang and Zhang Xuanyu sat on the log, eating dried fish while watching Han Fei and the others do fancy things. In the end, they painted the blocks in different colors. When everything was done, Han Fei refined again. In the end, a square hexahedron appeared in front of everyone. Zhang Xuanyu finally couldn't help but say, "Fei Fei, what is this?" Han Fei grinned. "The Rubik's Cube. If it was just a Rubik's Cube, then it wouldn't be a real dimensional killing array. Otherwise, it would be a whole 64 pieces without any internal parts. It was not that he couldn't refine it, but the cost was too high. Without the internal parts, the final solution was to refine this thing into a huge spiritual weapon. Even if he drained all his spiritual energy, it wouldn't be enough. However, Han Fei didn't need it to be a huge spiritual weapon, just an ordinary one. Han Fei looked at the huge 6-colored cube with satisfaction and suddenly grinned. "Rise!" Suddenly, everyone saw the Rubik's Cube fly up and stop at a height of more than 30 meters. Ku Shui was puzzled. "Young Master Han Fei, did you add a floating stone to this cube?" Han Fei immediately grinned and said, "You have good taste." Ku Shui smiled faintly. "What kind of taste is this?" "Without the floating stone, it wouldn't be able to fly even if you didn't refine a spiritual weapon." Lu Renquang asked, "Is this a house?" Zhang Xuanyu grinned. "How can a house look like this?" Li Luo Luo quite liked it. "No, I think it looks good." Luo Xiaobai didn't say anything. She didn't understand. For the first time, she felt that her IQ was not high enough. Han Fei chuckled. "It looks good, doesn't it? There are better ones." With a thought from Han Fei, the entire Rubik's Cube began to spin. After a few turns, the originally beautiful 6 complete colors had completely scattered. "Wow, F***CK. What's this? It can spin?" Luo Xiaobai's face changed drastically. "Han Fei, what do we turn back?" The old man's pupils constricted, and he took a breath. "Isn't it a marvelous work? Doesn't it have infinite changes?" Han Fei said with a smile. "Not yet. I haven't set up an array yet. When I set up all the arrays, this thing can spin automatically. At that time, even I don't know what array I will encounter when I go in. Isn't it amazing?" Everyone was silent. After a long time, Lu Renquang said leisurely, "Then how do we get in the end?" Han Fei said with a smile, "Don't panic. When I finish setting up the array, I will add a self-destruct array. At that time, if someone wants to open it by force, he will get nothing. This is our school's library. You must put the 6 colors together into one, and you can only enter if you don't make any mistakes." Zhang Xuanyu said leisurely, "How do you put this thing together?" Han Fei said in his heart, "Just like this." The Rubik's Cube library began to spin and spin countless times. Even Luo Xiaobai was dumbfounded, and the Rubik's Cube slowly recovered. Zhang Xuanyu took a breath. "Just like, what? I just saw it clicking, but I didn't understand any of it." Lu Renquang scratched his head. "Oh, I guess I won't be able to enter the library for the rest of my life." Li Luolua's face stiffened. "I think it's better to build a house normally." Chapter 991. In front of the Rubik's Cube, everyone, including Ku Shui, was a little dumbfounded. They probably wouldn't be able to get in unless they dismantled this thing. But in fact, this Rubik's Cube itself was not a particularly rare thing. It was just a weird shape. If someone really wanted to touch this Rubik's Cube, they must want to take the things inside. However, if they couldn't restore the Rubik's Cube, they couldn't take the things inside. Therefore, even if Han Fei and the others were not here, it didn't matter if someone broke in. If the Rubik's Cube was destroyed, they could build another one. Ku Shui couldn't help but sigh. "Brilliant. Miss is with such an extremely brilliant heavenly talent." No wonder she grew so fast. This fantastic idea is comparable to the God's Memorial Tower. Only Luo Xiaobai's eyes flickered. No, the Rubik's Cube library has infinite changes, and the result is different every time it is rotated. So, it's impossible to turn the Rubik's Cube like this with the same rotation method just now. Han Fei grinned. There is an incantation. Huever, this incantation can only be known by the insiders of the Thug Academy. Outsiders can't know it. Phew! Phew! Zhang Xuanyu and Lu Rinquang heaved a long sigh of relief. As long as there was an incantation. Otherwise, they would never be able to get in. Li Luoluo looked at Han Fei curiously. What's wrong with your brain? Han Fei sneered. Who am I? You won't know how talented I am until you know me for a long time. Luo Xiaobai rolled her eyes. Okay, stop bragging. You said it's not done yet. How much longer will it take? Han Fei thought for a moment. The difficulty is not in the construction, but the arrays. I want to fill every Rubik's Cube with killing arrays and connect every block with each other. It will take another 3 days. Zhang Xuanyu curled his lips. I thought it would take a long time. Then hurry up. Han Fei took out a drawing and said, Xiaobai, follow my drawing and set up a maze with spiritual plants. Lay these pieces of wood into the pattern on the drawing. Luo Xiaobai took the drawings and looked at them. She was dazzled. Is this building a school? Is this a big array? On the drawing, it was a square wall of vegetation, and the inside was filled with roads. The center of the map was where the Rubik's Cube was located. The square on the map had a diameter of more than 300 miles. Who the hell could walk through it? Even Luo Xiaobai couldn't help but curse. Who could walk in here? If he didn't use the teleportation formation, didn't fly, and didn't use his senses, he could only rely on his luck to walk in. Luo Xiaobai said unhurriedly, Is it really necessary? Han Fei waved his hand and said, Not at all. We have too many enemies. We have to take precautions. Luo Xiaobai rolled her eyes. If an explorer comes, the arrays you set up can't possibly resist them. Can they? Han Fei smiled and said, If a peak-level law enforcer comes, I might not be able to stop him. However, we can slowly perfect it. When we set up more and more array formations, and when we reach the peak of law enforcers, I'm afraid that even explorers will cry when they come. Luo Xiaobai looked at Han Fei thoughtfully. You're quite thoughtful. Zhang Xuanyu and the other two hurried over. Zhang Xuanyu muttered, Let me see if there's anything new. Afterward, Zhang Xuanyu covered his eyes. Oh my God, forget it. I'll pave the floor. Yes, I'll pave the floor. The dried fish in Lu Rinquang's hand dropped. I'll help trim the flowers and plants. I'm familiar with this. I worked in the plantation in the Blue Sea town. Li Luoluo was dumbfounded. I heard that you have the habit of farming. There are still hundreds of kilometers of land outside that haven't been loosened. I'll go and loosen the soil for them. 5 days later, Luo Xiaobai and the others each had a fish skin map in their hands, on which there were formulas. Lu Rinquang rubbed his head. Clockwise, clockwise, counterclockwise, counterclockwise, clockwise. Hey, where am I? Forget it. Let's start again. Li Luoluo muttered, right clockwise, top clockwise, back clockwise, right clockwise. Oh, it's so annoying. Luo Xiaobai shattered the fish skin map without saying a word. Where's Han Fei? Miss, young Master Han Fei, is setting up a huge spirit gathering array. In one array, there are more than 30 medium-sized arrays. In each medium-sized array, there are more than 30 small arrays. Young Master Han Fei is really a genius. Luo Xiaobai rolled her eyes. Okay, then let's wait a little longer. It wasn't until this afternoon that Han Fei flew over from the air. At this moment, the maze hadn't been covered with a seal yet. This was something that Han Fei couldn't do with his current means. He thought he'd better wait until he became a law enforcer in the future. Let's do this first. Han Fei smiled and said, Dang, dang, dang. How about it? Have you memorized it? Yes, we can go out. I can sense that someone is waiting for us outside our academy every day. In fact, there are more than a few people waiting outside every day. There were dozens of people waiting outside every day. Or rather, those people were not waiting for Han Fei and the others. but watching the maze. Because the magic cube was a little far from them, most people actually couldn't see it. However, this huge maze attracted their attention. But without Han Fei's permission, no one dared to come in. If they were kicked out again, they would lose face. And as soon as Han Fei asked everyone, he saw Zhang Xuanyu, Luren Kuang, and Li Luoluo looking at it bitterly. Li Luoluo pouted speechlessly. I've only memorized half of it. Zhang Xuanyu chuckled. I've already memorized 70% to 80%. Han Fei looked at Luren Kuang, who was stunned for a moment. Give me a few more days. Han Fei. Fortunately, Han Fei didn't need to ask Luo Xiaobai. She must have already memorized it. At this moment, he patted Luren Kuang's shoulder and said, How about this? Eat a mouthful of hot pot on the left and a mouthful of braised pork on the right. Just memorize it like this. It's simple. Luren Kuang's eyes lit up. Good idea. It's much more interesting than this. As for Ku Shui, Han Fei naturally didn't give him the incantation. After all, this was the secret of the Thug Academy. After all, Ku Shui was a member of the Luo family, so he couldn't be generalized. Han Fei said, Okay, let's go through the maze with me. Let's go to the banquet tonight. Luo Xiaobai said, Okay. Zhang Xuanyu was puzzled. Fei, I have a question that I don't understand. Huh? Zhang Xuanyu said, Why do you often stop halfway through the floor in your blueprint? Han Fei smiled. It's a smokescreen. You'll know what it's used for when school starts. In the evening, when Han Fei and the others appeared outside the maze, a member of the Su family immediately came up to greet them. My family master invites you to a banquet. Han Fei nodded. Okay, wait a moment. Han Fei took out a big sign and inserted it into the ground. On it was written, There's a killing array inside. Do not trespass. Otherwise, your life may be in danger. When the group of people saw this sign, they all gasped. Such a big array? Immediately, someone asked, Excuse me, does the Thug Academy enroll students? Han Fei smiled and said, Don't panic, everyone. Wait for us to go to the Su family's banquet. At that time, I will announce the admission standards of the Thug Academy. Everyone will have a chance. Hearing that everyone would have a chance, many people's eyes lit up. Recently, the older generation of their families always talked about how powerful the Thug Academy was and how the disciples in the academy were heavenly talents. They thought that they would only accept the disciples of the big clans, but they didn't expect that everyone would have a chance. How could they not be happy? Han Fei glanced at the member of the Su family and said, Lead the way. The Pure Sun Island was actually very large. It covered an area of more than 2,000 square kilometers, which was as large as the Wind Thunder Town. Of course, it wasn't circular. Instead, it was in the shape of an irregular strip. After the Thug Academy came, it occupied about 1/3 of the area. When they passed by their plantation on fishing boats, they were still discussing whether they should also build a few spirit-gathering arrays in the plantation. After a moment, on the bank of a large river, they saw residences dozens of kilometers away from Yinyang. The whole house was brightly lit as if they had already received the news. The scene was just like the palace compound that Han Fei knew. There were groups of houses decorated with lanterns, and it was very lively. Of course, Han Fei and the others knew very well that they didn't come here for their sake, but for the sake of the reputation of the Thug Academy and the big shots behind it. In front of the house, there were endless guests. Because it was a welcoming banquet, there were no gifts prepared. It could be said that many famous people on the entire Pure Sun Island had come. They had long heard about the reconstruction of the Thug Academy. It was said that 5 peak-level hidden fishers were undefeated in a battle against 1,000 people. There was even a young man who fought against 5 law enforcers alone. Many people were dumbfounded when they heard it. Who didn't want to come and see it? At this moment, Han Fei and the others had just landed. An old steward came up to greet them. He seemed to have been waiting for a long time. The steward was also very strong. He was actually a law enforcer. Obviously, he was specially here to welcome Han Fei and the others. The steward hurriedly stepped forward and said with a smile, Are you Han Fei and the 5 young masters? The few of you have finally arrived. The patriarch has instructed us not to neglect the few young masters. Because we just learned that you've rebuilt the academy, we're in a hurry and have just sent out invitations. If you don't mind, I'm willing to lead you into the academy. Han Fei looked at Luo Xiaobai, who bowed slightly. There's no need to trouble us. The steward is a law enforcer. It'll be too ostentatious if he follows us. You just need to send someone to follow us. This way, our identities won't be exposed. When the banquet begins, we can go over by ourselves. Just as the steward was about to speak, Ku Shui said with a smile, "My miss is right. Steward of the Su family, you don't have to worry." Han Fei nodded and said, "We'll walk by ourselves." Luo Xiaobai glanced at Ku Shui. "Grandpa Ku, you don't have to follow us. Otherwise, it'll be too eye-catching." "Yes, Mississippi,"